Welcome to day 2 of this training session. For everyone who has said this, we are late and we're not managing time. This meeting is supposed to start at 9 SAT, that is South African time. And maybe in your region or in your country, it's an hour later. I know in East Africa, it's at 10 o'clock where you are now. So we are on time. Just a few things. There are a change to the last session. We're not going to have the breakaway session any longer. So we are going to just change that to a question and answer session. So we will take your questions in the chat, and if you have any questions at the end, we will also take those questions and then try to do a Q&A. So the breakaway session is we're not going to do that because just the timing it takes to put people into groups, it's a bit unmanageable. Welcome to our presenters that are here today. It will be exciting morning, I think. And they will introduce themselves as they start. So I don't want to take any more time of Nosisa. She's first on the program, and she will then start her presentation. Thanks, Nosisa.
Colleagues, good morning. Can you just confirm what you are seeing on your screen?
We are seeing your video.
Myself and not the slides?
No, you have to share your slides.
So share, is that okay now?
That's perfect.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. I will be flying through this presentation because after yesterday's meeting and the love that we received from the audience and the questions, I altered it. It was 26 slides, now it's doubled. So I'll try and go fast, but this is about giving information that people indicated that they needed. So greetings from across Africa and beyond. My name is Nosisa Dube, and I work as a senior specialist in the Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Department of the National Research Foundation of South Africa. This morning, I'll be presenting to you the topic, Rethinking Research Assessment. It's about how the NRF has reviewed the approach to the way we value research to positively influence and strengthen our research culture. The slides are not moving. So I don't know how to move. Okay, let me go back. So this is me to give context on who you're speaking to. I've worked in the science and innovation sector for 21 years. After I graduated my master's in 2002 from Rhodes University, I joined the CSIR and worked for 7 years there in industrial research, moved to the NRF, started as a peer review officer, then a project leader, a director of reviews and evaluations. Now I'm a specialist in the Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Department. So my current role involves managing responsible research assessment and evaluation in recognition of diverse contributions to research and academic careers in line with transforming global best practice. So moving the slides is a bit of a challenge. Okay. So that's the outline of the structure. I won't go through it, but this will be helpful for you when you get the presentation. So I'll start by introducing the organization. Remember, yesterday Yolanda and both Yolanda and Tanya talked about understanding the language of the funder. So in terms of the NRF vision, then the NRF envisions the knowledge and research enterprise as drivers of national development. And the mission of the NRF is hence, I don't know, I'm struggling moving. Okay, so the mission of the NRF then is to enable and facilitate the contribution of knowledge and scientific research to national development. And then our mandate or specific assignment is to advance, support, and promote research in all areas of science, including indigenous knowledge systems. We also form partnerships and cooperation with multiple partners, whether it be other funders or I'm having trouble with moving the mouse. Sorry, something is happening here. So our partnerships underpin our effective service delivery model. We also promote the national research enterprise by funding postgraduate students and researchers. We also are the primary provider of the research infrastructure in the country. I succeed. Okay. So within the tenure of the NRF Strategy 2025, all our business decisions and activities are anchored on 5 correlated concepts, acronymed TIES. So that stands for Transformation, Innovation, Impact, Excellence, and Sustainability. So we then, to honor our transformation agenda, the NRF drives the transformation of the knowledge and research enterprise innovatively in a way that positively impacts society, while we promote excellence in our business and the science that we support to ensure global competitiveness, sustainability, and the continuity of our mandate. So then when it comes to the topic that we're talking about, the research assessment, in the context of the NRF, research assessment encompasses the ranking of individual researchers through a program called the NRF rating system, which is a multidimensional and multi-phased retrospective evaluation of the quality and impact of the researchers' outputs, and it's used as a mechanism to determine the candidates in whom we invest and to determine the levels of investment. It's based on a ranking system called the Declaration of the rating categories. So you would have A-rated researchers, B-rated researchers, which are your top level, and then C, P, which are the young upcoming researchers that have talent, and then it's A, B, C, P, Y, the young rated researchers. So the system is based on a sound principle that research support in universities should be based on identifying the most important element in good research and the scarcest, which is a good researcher. So research assessment, I'll skip this one. I've already said it. So research assessment also entails the assessment of projects for funding, for research projects. So we then fund research grant proposals of also individual researchers. For intellectual merit, we assess that, and then potential impact. We do this through 2-stage mono or interdisciplinary projects, and we carry out in a single blind review. We also evaluate research teams, but we don't have specific programs for evaluating research teams. We have research programs like the South African Research Chairs and the international research grants, the collaborative research grants, have a very strong component of assessing the competencies of the research teams. And then we also do this through 2-stage reviews and multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary panels. We also evaluate research programs after a program has been running for 3 years. We check the relevance of that program, or whether it's performed the objectives for which the program was formed through a process called comprehensive evaluations. This also process entails site visits, interviews, and open review where the reviewers will be knowing the applicants and the applicants will be knowing who is reviewing them. We also have 5-year institutional evaluations. We evaluate some institutions that would require the NRF to evaluate their performance against the set objectives. The NRF itself does get evaluated through these comprehensive evaluations to keep us in check for performance against our strategic objectives. So why do we need to transform the research assessment? We know that policymakers require that we account as researchers for how the outputs of our research and outcomes improve the quality of life beyond knowledge production. And we also have to transform this to advocate then for continued or increased funding for returns, to account for returns on investment. So this growing interest in achieving impact has broadened the scope of research evaluations as government and funders demand change. We also have frameworks that are coming up, movements across the world that also encourage the reform of research assessment so that researchers are not shortchanged. Their contributions to research are fairly assessed. And these current conversations and trends encourage interactions with relevant but non-academic stakeholders in research. I've already said this, and there's also then an advocacy for a paradigm shift from basic research to mission-led research, which means there's also a need to resolve or address local and global challenges. This, again, requires collaboration, transdisciplinary research, and transboundary research. Again, the research assessment reform, because of the impact and the formation of partnerships, transboundary research requires those that are involved, the partners, to be aligned in the way that they carry out the evaluation of their research. We are also influenced by the policies that influence this movement based on the questions and the comments that were raised yesterday. Why do funders dictate or influence our interests? We actually are influenced by the policies, and the big one is our decadal plan. If you look at the bottom corner, I've just given you a link for the South African decadal plan. Perhaps most of you already know, but I've taken the liberty to just take a snapshot of what's in chapter 3, chapter 9, and chapter 10 to show that this is very important. And the key phrases across this slide, you can see that there's coordination in budgets that is required, international partnering. So we can't continue business as usual. There is a need to change the way we value research. Also, the NRF strategy speaks to this, so I've attached a link for you so that you understand what the NRF requires more. We'll fly through these policies. I'll just name what is there. I've also provided you with a link to the NRF Impact Advancement Framework. It will tell you what is written there and what the NRF expects in terms of the impact. And then we also have the NRF Engaged Research Framework. I've also attached a link for you to consume that information. Now, I've spoken about the need to form partnerships for sustainable research for all these reasons that were stated, for leveraging funding, capacity, and all the things and the benefits of forming partnerships. So the NRF then has got about 39 active bilateral partnerships with counterparts across 5 regions of the world. 45 agreements with different stakeholders, including the private sector, state-owned enterprises, developmental agencies, and foundations. As a member of 7 regional and global committees for multilateral programs, and we facilitate about 13 university networks. Because of this, we form partnerships with other discussion groups that will also for mutual learning and alignment in terms of how we do things. So we are signatories to the San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment, the DORA, and I've provided a link to this declaration. And the DORA recommends that outputs from scientific research, it states that there are many, and including research articles. So we should not just be looking at the researchers' work and focus on just counting the journals, you know, those conventional quantitative matrix. We've moved from that. So the NRF, at least if researchers didn't know this, we are aware of this. So we are switching to looking at different outputs, and you'll see the calls as well will require what is assessed in the calls and the scorecards that are included in the frameworks. They do speak to this. So we are expected to assess and measure and evaluate the quality of and impact of scientific research wisely. We also, to be relevant, and because of our multilateral partnerships, are part of the Global Research Council. It's a virtual organization with over 64 participants from both the Global North and Global South. I've already indicated that I'm a member of the Responsible Research Assessment Working Group, and there South Africa is, I think, I didn't include South Africa, is represented there, and I am in the second row, although my name is not appearing on this one. And then this group has achieved much, and the objectives of the group, the Responsible Research Assessment, is to advocate for the importance of responsible research assessment and work towards a shared understanding and goals for RRA within the GRC participants. When we get the shared understanding of what it is, then we share the best practice and guidance in implementing and embedding RRA in our processes. And then we should also galvanize support and enable a coordinated action in the GRC participants to implement the common RRA principles. So alignment is very, very important. And then we extend the knowledge base where gaps and barriers exist and persist. Sorry, if you are throwing in questions, I won't be seeing because I'm mindful of time. We have recently, I thought I should brag and highlight my name. So you see it's in blue. We have recently and proudly just published in May the 11 dimensions of responsible research assessment. So we have achieved our objective of getting to a shared understanding and advocating for the importance of responsible research assessment. So there's the dimensions there. They are divided into 3 categories, and responsible research assessment really is an umbrella term defined as the approaches to assessment which incentivize, reflect, and reward the plural characteristics of high-quality research in support of a diverse and inclusive research culture. So GRC participating organizations have developed the set of 11 dimensions, and these are here. They speak to commitment to promotion of research integrity and responsible conduct of research, incentivizing open research, and commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, the effects of challenges and emergencies on research. And when it comes to governance and strategy, responsible administration and monitoring of research assessment processes, approaches to research assessment reform, responsible use of influence on institutional policies and practices. Process and methodology is the responsible use and dissemination of research assessment criteria, and then the contributions, responsible assessment of research contributions, the inclusion of all the essential contributions of that researchers make, impact assessment, and then approaches to recruitment and the training of reviewers. We are a member of GRC, not just in the Responsible Research Assessment Working Group. We also are represented. There is a working group on equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's considered an important enough topic to warrant a formation of a group. We also have are represented by Prudence Makura there, in the multilateral engagement working group, and the objectives of this group are indicated on the slides. We talked about partnerships. We also are part of the RORI, Research on Research Institute consortium with 17 organizations, and the NRF is going to be joining the RORI partnership. We've already submitted a letter of intent, and this discussion is going very well. The Agora project is a global observatory of responsible research assessment. I'm the deputy chairperson of this project. I was elected, I think, last year, and it focuses on assessing the environments across the national assessment systems and to check for evidence for research assessment reform. This was a conference that was held in Berlin to discuss specifically the importance of transdisciplinarity, making transdisciplinarity real. What are the requirements of transdisciplinarity? How do we define it from different countries? What does it entail? What are the challenges that come with the formation of transdisciplinary teams? So the processes and practices that we have currently, we run a merit review process or evaluation process predominantly. That means that the panelists do not make funding decisions. They actually, the peer reviewers will make recommendations, but the final decisions of whether to fund or not, or allocate an award, will include the funders' staff. And then predominantly, again, we run a single blind review. I know that there's advocacy for double blind review. It's very difficult to run a double blind review when you are going to be evaluating the track record of an applicant. For now, I must admit, we have not mastered it. And then the matrix, we are focusing on the scientific merit, impact, the diversity, inclusiveness, collaboration, relevance, the quality of research, and we are just new in including the open science policy. I think there's a lot of challenges that people have with that in terms of IP and a whole lot of discussions that are going on. We also have set up systems that are cognizant of these diverse contributions when the applications are being submitted. We've moved from monodisciplinary to pluridisciplinarities. What we've found is that the calls and to run multinational calls and transdisciplinarity takes longer than normal. And then here, we formed, there was a pilot call that we ran with the GRC with 11 countries. And we find that most of the required capabilities reside in the Global North because most of the funding comes from the Global North, and the PIs would also be based in the Global North. So these are the things that we are picking up. And then the reviewer recruitment for transdisciplinary panels is difficult if you are running a multinational call. And then the external reviewers also are trained in monodisciplinarities, and they are reluctant to take proposals that are not in their area of expertise. When it comes to funding decisions, there is legislation where money does not cross borders. We had a partnership that was formed with one of the countries, and that country didn't have money. And the requirements of the call were that all partners should have money. So the other partner could not contribute with what they had, and they took their money back. That seemed to cause some kind of contention. In terms of representativity.
3 minutes. Thanks.
So in terms of representativity, we do try to have all institutions represented. This is now across the different categories of our institutions, but where we show transdisciplinarity and the participation of science councils and other policy funders is shown in the category of science councils and other. I think we have gone through this. And then here are the principles that we follow because of the frameworks that and the groups that we involved in and our partnerships. They are self-explanatory, I've already indicated. And then the scorecards, I will just read the key criteria: relevance and potential impact. I've described them on the side for you. Implementation of the project, and then competence and collaboration of team is very important. The structure of the NRF, look at the one that is in the middle that says research and innovation support. It used to be configured based on functions. Now we've changed the structure to fit the purpose. We've broken it down. That part of RISA has now been elaborated to this kind of structure with it's instrument-based, and it's a formation of core teams with all functions in the core teams so that we can increase our efficiencies. The opportunities that we have when that come with the research assessment reform is the formation of partnerships for mutual learning, best practice, and alignment of impact. We can also raise an awareness, guide, and train role players on these changes so that we can continuously improve our processes and check what works for us in our continent and customize the recognition of contributions for researchers and academic careers. We can also form committees across the nation, NSI, and the region. Also build literacy, commit resources for implementation of this. Alignment across the NSI and across the region is important. Also, we must abandon the bad use of these general impact factors and university rankings and share progress on implementation. Last 2 slides, I think. But the challenge is that the extent to which this research assessment reform is known and the awareness is unknown. So we should consider how to get from a point of not knowing to a point of knowing. There is a survey that I've put in there for you. You will read it. It's informative. And then the deadline is the 30th of September, 2024. I'd appreciate it if you could fill it up. I've put in my email and my phone numbers at the beginning on the title slide. And the acknowledgements, thank you to NRF, thank you to SARIMA for inviting me to get through this rushed presentation. Global Research Council, DORA, QUARA, Research on Research Institute, and the AGORA Committee. Done. Any questions?
Thanks, Nosisa. We will put the people in the training or put their questions on the chat, and we will deal with it in the Q&A. Sorry, people. Thanks, Nosisa. This was a very informative presentation. Even myself, I didn't know all the changes happening at the NRF. I was sure to read your document. Okay. Without further ado, I think we can go to the next presentation, and that will be Ngoni, and he will look at financial management and accountability. Ngoni, if you're on the chat, please project your slides. So, is Ngoni not here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Yolanda. All right, thanks. Hello.
Yeah, we can't see your slides yet.
Okay, all right, let me.
Thank you.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so should I go ahead?
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone. My name is Ngoni Zashe or Ngoni Ngwarai. I'm an assistant director in the MRC BITS Agent Code Research Unit. I'm in charge of the systems and the operations. So just to give background, the MRC BITS Agent Code Unit is a research unit within the University of the Witwatersrand. It's a wholly grants-funded research unit. So my presentation is gonna look into the financial management and accountability. This is specifically looking into the grants, the financial management and accountability of the grants, and this befits us being a grants-funded unit. So the way I've structured my presentation to you all is I'll first give the overview of what I'm going to talk about, and then just take you through the financial management and grants process and lifestyle so that we can get an understanding of what is entailed in terms of financial management and the process and lifestyle of grants, and also the overview of the grants, financial and contractual risks. What are some of the risks that we come across? And maybe I should recap that the MRC BITS Agent Code Unit has been in existence for now 32 years, running a longitudinal platform through grants. So I'll also talk through some of the risks, and then he also talk about the different phases of grants, that is the pre, the post-award, and also the grants management phase. What comes into play once the grant has been awarded. And then also in my concluding remarks, I'll also share with you some of the lessons that have been learned over the past years. So the main purpose is to give you an overview of the research grants, financial management and accountability. As I highlighted in my introductory remarks, that the MRC BITS Agent Code is wholly grants funded unit. So I will talk about this financial management and accountability, giving some insights in what has taken this unit also to be still running research for more than 3 decades. Now, financial management, I know people try to define financial management in different ways, but in this slide, I'll just take you through some of the practical terms that comes into mind when we are talking about financial management from a grants point of view. They are basically 5 pillars, which looks into accountability, accuracy, completeness, occurrence, and transparency. And in all these, this is embodied in the ability to organize and utilize resources effectively for the purpose of the grant. You actually realize that grants are time bound. Every project that you run is got a start and an end, and is also governed by the grant that you have been given. So you have to be organized and use the resources effectively. Just like we all are aware, in every research, ethics play a very important role. There is always the need to observe ethics when you are running grants, even in the financial management part of it. There is a issue of answerability, liability, account giving, as much as accuracy, completeness, and occurrence. Being able to pick up when did something happen, and also the desire to make sure that you do something right the first time. Then let's look into the aspect of grants process and life cycle, just to share with you how the grants runs the process and the life cycle of a grant. Okay, so grants management, from a practical point of view, it actually relates to all the administrative tasks that are required to handle the money, being able to report, and also the implementation of the programs that meets the generally accepted standards. In many cases, people try to differentiate between the finance and the grants. So this is just to give the highlight of what is entailed within grants management. This has to do with the reporting and how you handle the money in line with the accepted standards. Then what are the importance of accountability? Unlike private organizations, where an organization can make its profit, in grants management, it's very important to be accountable, because you have to build trust with the funders. Trust is the end, and in most cases, this trust is end over a long period of time. So when you become accountable, you also build the trust. And also it helps in terms of the legal and ethical consideration and the aspect of relationship management for future funding. I should highlight that in many cases, grants management and grants funding, it has to do to a greater extent with relationships, and these relationships are built over time. The reason why I'm pointing and emphasizing this is because it's part and parcel of what it means in terms of grants management. Then let me take you through the life cycle of the process and the life cycle of a grant. So there's what we call the pre-award, the post-award, and the grants management, which is followed out by the close-out. So all these 4 pillars in terms of the grants talks to how grants are managed, what is entailed within the financial management of grants. So within the pre-award, this is the phase where the principal investigators and the grants team are writing an application to the funder. And then the post-award, this is when the grant is now being awarded, and then you are now looking into the contractual obligations, and then you do the orientation of the grants, looking into the terms and conditions. I'll be expounding more on these things as I go on each of these life cycles, so that you can see the importance of them and why they are so key in terms of financial management under a grant-funded institution. Then there's the grants management, which is to do with how do you manage, how do you administer the grants. This is to do with understanding the federal requirements, the management system, the policies that are put in place, also the risks that are associated. And then finally, there's the close out. In every grant, there ought to be a close out. A grant starts and then a grant ends. So there must be a close out where you do the final reporting. just checking my time here. Okay, then just to look, before I get into the details of the phases, some of the risks that are associated with financial and contractual management of grants. There's things like the scientific or non-performance. This is to do with reporting. There are things like under budgeting. We've witnessed cases where in writing the grants, there is an under budgeting, and this under budgeting can be a result of exchange rate risks. As we know, currently there are different economic turbulences, politics that are at play. So you may realize that the grant might have been under budgeted. So these are some of the risks that come into play, and they need to be managed. Also of importance, there's an issue of cash flows. Cash flows risk is very important. Like the NIH, you'll find that some grants are advanced, some grants are reinvesive. So when you're running a reinvesive grant, it means then you have to invoice, and then you have to manage your cash flow very carefully. You can get a 20 million US grant, which is reinvesive. So if you don't manage your cash flow, you may end up being unable to meet the ultimate objectives of the project. So let me look into the pre-award phase of the grant. What are some of the financial considerations that we need to look into? So this is the phase where you are studying the instructions and policies of the funding institution. When there's an advert or a call for a grant, the team, principal investigators and the team, then they have to look into what are the instructions. Very important to follow the instructions. And nowadays, some of the systems that are used for the submissions, they are complicated. One has to follow them carefully, and most of the submissions nowadays are done online. Very important to look when you're looking into the budget, be able to see what are the direct and what are the indirect costs. These are key in terms of financial considerations in grants management. Things like equipment, things like personal costs, because each fund has got different requirements. Some will find that they don't fund equipment, some may only fund personnel, and also things like the audit costs, the overhead costs, like in our case, the MRC Research in Court, we do work closely with the Fiscal Consortium. There are also administrative fees that come into play. And some of the other issues to consider when preparing a budget, just giving some nuggets in terms of issues to consider when preparing a budget during the pre-award phase. You need to apply your mind and be able to look carefully and start the environment and where you're going to be running the project. And then the indirect costs, always need to look into what are the indirect costs to be budgeted for. In some cases, these things can be left unattended for. And issues like inflation comes into play. When we are looking into inflation, one also needs to factor it even when budgeting for the salaries. Because at times, like in South Africa, normally every year there's a cost of living adjustment, which is inflation pegged, which is given to the employees. If you don't manage that very well, you realize that when you go to year 2, year 3, you may not have money to pay your staff, and this may lead to industrial unrest during the course. Exchange rates, I've mentioned about the exchange rates and the issues around that. Where it's normally applicable, this needs to be budgeted for. Okay, then we still look into the issue of these foreign grants. Like in South Africa, most of the funding is actually foreign funding, the NIH, the Wellcome Trusts, etc., etc. Then let's look into the post-award phase. So during the post-award phase, this is after the budget has been prepared and then there's a submission. This is where you now need to start working into creation of the cost centers to be created and the VAT implications, the transfer of the property. This is now when you're preparing for the implementation of the start, but looking into financial management. Here, I'm just going to give you an illustration of what we use just as an example. I know different institutions may use different programs, but we've got what we call the SADC, which is an ERP system, which we use in terms of financial and grants management. So once the grant has now been issued and awarded, there you see where the division syndicate is registered. Then you open up the bank account. The bank account ought to be opened because the money has to be managed from an account. So each grant, once it's been awarded, an account is opened so that you can be able to manage it and be able to account it. And within that, then you do a setup of such X3, and then there's a P2P. So P2P is the procurement to pay. You'll find that it's very important because procurement is one of the key issues in grants management. If it's not managed very well, it can lead to many audit findings. So it needs to be carefully managed. The EPMV, these are the payment motivation vouchers setups. All these things have to do with an ERP, it's an integrated resources planning system that then manages from the start to the end. It also manages the payroll. But as you can see, this all emanates from the bank account. So this is the bank account, and then all these arms of the ERP, which is the SADC, will be there. Okay. Still a continuation around the grants management phase, looking into issues like compliance issues, managing cash flow, internal and external financial reporting and audits. These things need to be continuously managed. Now you are managing the grant after it has been awarded. There are issues that I need to highlight, especially when you are working with the NIH, things like the timesheets. These are very important part of grants management phase. They need to be managed very well and completed on time. Compliance around the funders regulations, exchange rates and accounts, these continue to be managed in the grants management phase. Okay, so now just to respond to probably a question around why compliance, because we are now under the grants management phase, and just to take it through why compliance is very important when we are managing finances in a grant setup. We do grants compliance because of the national laws. You want to make sure that whatever grant that you're managing, whatever financial responsibility in grants management, it is within the laws of the nation, because there are exchange rates, regulations, there are different regulations that are enshrined within the national laws. And also the award or the grant agreement. That's why it's very important when submitting for a grant to check what are the agreement, what are the award agreements. Those need to be followed to the letter as part of the compliance. And thirdly, there is organizational policies and procedures. To effectively manage finance and grants within an organization, there must be some policies and procedures that are set up. And lastly, there's an issue of financial reporting standards. The generally accepted accounting principles and other audit principles needs to be followed. These are the key 4 reasons why compliance is very important in financial management. Then the critical components of a financial policy. Here I'm just taking you through some of the critical components of finance policy. In managing grants, it's very important to have a finance policy. And these policies should look into accounting policies, financial reporting guidelines, budgeting and budgetary control, cash management, as I was explaining earlier on about cash flow. It's very important. If you don't manage cash flow, you may end up not even being able to run effectively the project. And the issue of the cost allocation, if you don't manage, as you shall hear in my later slides, if you don't allocate the costs properly, you may end up with disallowable costs. So it's very important to always look in terms of withdrawal, storage, issuance, and monitoring within budget, things like the budget preparation, monitoring, the variance analysis from time to time is very important. And then also the 6th thing is the assets. Assets are very important in financial management of grants, because from acquisition to disposal, you may run a project that is a 1-year project, and then it buys, for example, a vehicle. We all know that the lifespan of a vehicle can be anything from 5 years. So it's very important to see how those assets are managed, because as you have seen during the creation of the setup of the account, when you buy an asset sits within that budget. Then when the project ends, you don't then just dispose the asset without approval from the funder. So that's why I'm mentioning the issue of acquisition and disposal. One of the smart ways of managing this, especially if you want to run a research platform in a very sustainable way, is to check during the agreement phase that there is room that when the project ends, the assets should be transferable to your general account. This also boosts your standing point in terms of your finance as an institution. The payroll, preparation of the payroll, this is where we have got the timesheets also in it. Things like the travel, managing the travel, delegation of authority, another key issue. Also the general administration, it's very important. Then let me take you through the grants management phase. This is where we have things like audit findings. And the audits are both internal and external so that you can have strong systems. The internal audits needs to be in place. The external audits also comes. These manage findings like the double dipping, things like failure to meet reporting deadlines, allocation of shared costs, non-maintenance and updating of assets register. Assets are very, very important. Over expenditure on budget lines and beyond allowed budget flexibility. These are very important things. Also, the non-compliance to statutory requirements and supported expenditure. Every expenditure should be supported. And failure to seek prior approval where it's mandatory, always important to get approval in all expenditures. And utilization or exhaustion of resources. The reconciliation of the bank accounts, even issues like fictitious supporting documents. Those are some of the issues that come out. Then what are some of the possible effects of findings? So these findings that I was taking you through. Now, what are some of the effects? Most cases, there are 4 key issues, and they tend to form like a cycle, continuously running, one leads into the other. You end up with a disallowable cost. So why disallowable cost? So for instance, if you are running a project that is cost reimbursing, if you spend and then there's an audit finding, that will not be paid up. That becomes a disallowable cost. And then also the termination of the award, you may end up having an award being terminated and or failure to attract new funding. Also issues like fines and penalties, and most importantly, reputational damage, which is something very damning. Reputational damage, this speaks to the institution. Then the compliance recommendations, just taking you through some of the compliance recommendations, which are very important, critical policies required for any organization in financial or grants management. We need to have in place financial management policy and its underlying SOPs, the human resources management policy and its SOPs. Procurement management, as I said, procurement is very, very important. Transport management, if you're in clinical studies, there are different requirements that are needed in terms of transport management. Fraud management policy, information and technology management policy, even HIV workplace policy, program management policy. Here, just to illustrate to you an example from how we deal with procurement to pay. This is an integrated system where we, for every procurement, this applies to our South African context. Anything that is above 40,000 rands, you actually need 3 quotations, and then it moves through all this. This is through the SADC system until the payment is done. So you can see it's a well integrated system, which also ensures that at all costs, you minimize the chances of getting damning audit findings. Then the concluding remarks in terms of some of the lessons which can be valuable, which have been learned over the past years. Things like when you're doing financial management of grants, ignorance is actually no defense, so you need to know your award. I've seen cases where people only get to know what is enshrined in their award when they are caught unaware. So staff must always read the grants agreement, read and understand the donor rules and regulations. Very important. That's why it's important to take through the staff and all people who are involved in finance management, even the administrative team, all the people through the donors rules and regulations. Then organizational growth. As the organization also grows, all departments should grow. If you want to run an effective financial department in grants, as the organization grows, you also need to look into all other departments so that you can capacitate your operations and your systems can be strong. Then sub-grant management, all funders are now focusing on location, budget for capacity building of your sub-grants. We've seen some sub-grants that come within the main grants. Okay, I think I'm left with about 4 minutes. And then the issue of not working in silos is very key to avoid working in silos. And the training of staff, very important, because that's the way you can be able to make sure that the staff are in full picture of the policies of the grant or the funders. And then things like staff wellness are also very important. Lastly, but not least, knowing when to say no to certain grants. I think I should emphasize this. In some cases, people tend to apply for each and every grant, but I think one has to read carefully what are they getting themselves into. Not every grant is the same. Not every funder requirements are the same. At times, you actually realize that within your organization, you may not have the capacity to meet the requirements of that funder. So you need to know when to say no to certain grants. This is very important because some of the requirements may not be reasonable or you may not be able to meet them. Then, as I said, last but not least, the last part of finance management in grants is the grants close out. Here, I'm just giving you the illustration of how we manage the grants close out. So during the grants close out stage, you start with the balance sheet. This is now, you are now closing the grant because in grants management, you have to start and then you have to come to an end. You have to take your balance sheet and all the accounts, look into the liabilities, the assets, debtors, over transactions, the bank and retained income, and then all the steps are done. Then lastly, the bank account may be closed after transfer. So you close the bank account. Thank you so much. Acknowledgements. I'd like to thank the University of the Witwatersrand, the South Africa Department of Health, and also South African Population Research Infrastructure Network, which is the SAPRIN, a key funder to our platform, and other collaborators that we work with within the MRC Wits Agile unit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ngoni. That was a really insightful presentation. If everyone had asked about the presentations, these will be shared upon you filling in the feedback form. So don't worry about that. Also, there was some echo, but as I said, Ngoni's research unit is what we call in our campus, the rural campus. It is about 700 kilometers from the main campus in the Mpumalanga province. So yeah, there could be some connectivity issues. But this was really a really very insightful presentation. Thanks, Ngoni. We will then go for a break. Our time management is good today. We will go for a break for up. Thank you, everyone. If I know I'm back a little bit earlier than 1:15. There's still 1 minute left, but we just want the speaker or the presenter to just get ready for the presentation. We had a little shift in the presentation in the presentations. So Kondwani will be doing his presentation on building partnerships and collaboration, and then Aisha Muhammad Ali will then do her presentations after his on the innovation ecosystem and technology transfer. So if Kondwani is in the room, if he can just start projecting his presentation. Thank you. Thanks, Kundwani. You can start with your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the time that you have given me to make this presentation. Firstly, let me really appreciate greetings from Malawi, and hello all participants joining today across Africa, but also I know some are even joining us from beyond Africa. It's quite good to join hands and work together in these research activities. I'll be presenting on a topic, building partnerships and the collaboration, and this is mainly in research. So a brief background about myself. I'm Konran Chidziwisano, and I'm in the Department of Public and Environmental Health here at Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences in Malawi. And I work in the research support unit as a research support coordinator for our institution, but also I do research because I'm an academician by background, mainly interested in public health or environmental health kind of research, with an interest in water, sanitation, and hygiene in low and middle income countries. So that's really my area of expertise. And those are my contact details in case there's a need maybe for further follow-up and discussion beyond this presentation. Let me start my presentation by highlighting these three proverbs that we have on our screen. These are African proverbs, and in Africa we really like using proverbs, maybe just to make an emphasis on a particular point. And my emphasis here is on the issues of partnership and collaboration. When spiders unite, they can tie down a lion. So a spider, and you compare with a lion, but that is possible. That is when they unite. And at a round table, there is no dispute about the price. So if you're sitting on a round table, you can take in a seat, you can take in a chair, and you are all equal if you sit like that. But also a mouse may help a lion, depending on circumstances. So a mouse may help a lion. All these proverbs are really very strong proverbs when we look at issues of partnership and collaboration in research. It just emphasizes the need for researchers to join hands and work together. Because even those that we may look at them as maybe smaller institutions, they can even add more value to the work that we are doing. That's what it is telling us. But also when we are in partnership or in collaboration, we need to look at each other, one another as equal. In that way, we give each other respect, and then we can also move forward with our partnership and collaboration. To begin with, how can you make the most partnerships? That's really an important point to look into. So when we are talking of partnerships in research, we may need to look at why partnerships are important. That's very important. Why is it that we should have partnerships? We need to identify appropriate partners for your own work. That's another important element to think about, because there are a lot of partners across the globe, but which partners may fit well with your work, but also how to build successful partnerships. So in broader terms, these are some of the key issues that we'll be looking into in this presentation, and let's stay together. So why are partnerships important? Partnerships are important, and when we are looking at partnerships, it's not a one-way process, but it's something that is two-way, and it's something that should have mutual benefits to all. All the researchers that would be involved in a partnership or in a collaboration may need to benefit mutually. So that's the most important point we need to consider. But also partnerships are there to enrich research, okay? can help develop knowledge and uncover new areas to explore. So when we work in partnerships, there's an opportunity whereby different expertise are being brought into play, and then joining hands. If let's say you are trying to apply for a certain grant, it will have the power, you know, to really have that chance of winning this particular grant. So it's quite important. It's very hard to deliver impact single-handed. So always we may need to partner, and these partnerships can be at different levels. It can be at community level. You may have partnerships maybe at a district level, or partners maybe at national level. You may have partnerships at international level. It all depends on what kind of interest are you trying to bring out in this particular partnership or collaboration that you have formed together. So why do you want to partner? Partnerships or collaborations may have benefits at a research level or maybe at institutional level, but also partnerships may bring benefits even at individual level. So when you're looking at the research benefits, it's something that when you're partnering, you are bringing in researchers with different backgrounds coming together. It creates an opportunity for interdisciplinary kind of approach, and it provides advantages in terms of winning a grant, especially these days. Funders really would want researchers to join hands, and researchers maybe not only within the same country, but where researchers are coming even from different parts of the world or different parts of Africa, joining hands and work together in a particular research projects. So that's really quite important. And when you partner, because there are different expertise, you have started your research project, you are generating data, it also helps all the researchers involved to look at this data from different eye, and then the interpretation is really of high value. It's of good quality if we partner that way. And what it is telling us as if the data analysis is being done in terms of with quality, it also gives us quality results which can help to inform policy at different levels. And the ideas are vetted by broader group. So you may have a research idea. You may have a research idea in terms of designing of a particular project, but if there's a partnership, if this idea is being brought into partnership, it provides an opportunity whereby people can discuss about this particular idea, about this design of a research, and how best can we present it. So people bring in their ideas, and in the end, you have the best kind of a research proposal that you can develop if you're working together as a group. But also it enhances the opportunity to win a grant, as I've already said, more especially these days whereby the funders are looking at researchers joining hands and work together in such kind of partnerships in implementing research projects. But there are also some benefits at the individual level. For instance, it expands your scientific horizon, offers experience in the new field areas. That's really important. Because when you are partnering, you may work with someone with a different expertise which you don't have. In this way, you are able also to get some expertise from these other players in your partnership. So at individual level, you are able to enhance your scientific horizon. You can even learn a lot like writing skills and all that, which enhances your writing capabilities as a researcher. But also partnership whereby you are having all these different players coming together, it enhances networking and job opportunities. Because when you're partnering, there's that platform whereby you are networking either physically or even online, but you're able to come together, discuss issues, how best can you address some of the research problems that you have. And also in the process, you can even have an opportunity for other jobs, because you share maybe vacancies, you share ideas how to approach a particular job. So partnership will have all these personal benefits, including provide access to facilities or instrumentation. In this case, for instance, your institution may be limited in terms of maybe laboratory facilities for processing some samples that you have collected. So if you're doing a partnership, maybe a certain organization within your partnership may be able to have such resources, and then you can work together, which will really contribute to high value research by the end of it all, which may also contribute to maybe informing policy at different levels. But also it helps on your profile and reputation as an individual, because you can even say in your CV, that have partnered with such organizations. Maybe they're highly reputable organizations. It just shows how good you are in terms of working with other team players. So it's really good to always think about partnership, apart from maybe other research benefits, but also as an individual, you will have such opportunities of those benefits. And another important point that we may want to consider when we are trying to identify the right partners is to look at the impact of your research. What impact do you want to bring as you are implementing a particular research project? Or what's the goal of your research institution? Because that will also give you an idea on what kind of partners do you want to go with? What kind of collaborations do you want to go with? In this case, maybe are you interested in maybe improving existing policies that you have, or even formulation of new policies in a particular area? Is it that something to do with the health and well-being? Or is it something to do with civil society or cultural life? So you may want to think about various areas, various disciplines that you are interested in, or you want to bring impact on, and then look for relevant partners who are also interested in these areas. That's really an important point to consider. There are a lot of partners across the globe, but you may not go for all of them. You may need to look at those that are really interested in what you are doing. So first, look at the impact you want to make, and then go for such kind of partnerships. That's really important. Identify the right partners. Why would they want to partner? So that's another question you may want to ask yourself. You may identify maybe 2 or 3 partners that you really want to work with. But before you move on with maybe approaching them, before you move on maybe establishing a partnership, you may want to check what do we want to benefit with this kind of partnership? Is it to enhance their? Is it that what will they be interested in? Do they want to enhance their offering? For example, if you would want to partner with an industry organization, not really research per se, but they are in a production of various kind of products, and you want to partner with them, what will be the benefit to them if they partner with you? Will that really help maybe marketing of their product? That's another thing that you may want to check. And is this group of partners, is it really there just to help people? If it is there just to help people, is it fitting well with what you are interested in? Becoming more efficient or effective, or stay relevant or cutting edge. There are some other partners who just want to go into partnership because they just want to be relevant. Okay, is this their interest? Is this matching with your interest as well as an organization? And also, is it that the partnership will help to save money? If the partnership is there to save money, is this something that is also of your benefit? If it's a benefit to both of these institutions, then it's quite good maybe to consider or move forward with this kind of a partnership, because everyone will value the partnership that you can build at this point in time. So all these points may need to be taken into consideration before you move forward with partnering with an organization. Making the initial contact is important. So once you have established relevant partners that you want to work with, it's quite important also to look at some of these questions that are highlighted here. Why is your research relevant to them? Okay. Is this research idea that you have relevant to them? That's why we're talking of issues of impact. The impact that you want to make, is it also something that they would want to make as an organization? You look at that. How can you present it to create and demonstrate this relevance? And when is the best time to approach them? Sometimes you may not approach them at the right time. Sometimes you may want to make sure that you approach your potential partners maybe when there's a call for grant application, and you know that this particular institution is also interested in this area, and that would be an appropriate time to approach them, because they would want also to go for this particular call, and then you join hands to strengthen the possibility of winning this grant. So always look at the timing as well for when you may want to establish a partnership with a particular institution, and what are the best channels to approach them. Okay, look at the maybe their preferred. These days, institutions will have preferred ways of communication, especially with the virtual meetings that we have. Others would prefer using maybe Zoom. Others would prefer using Google Meet and all those kind of approaches. Others would prefer physical. So look at the possibilities of all these as an organization and see how can you fit in their interest in terms of communication with them. What about the potential partners that you don't know about? Okay, so you may have a few partners that you know interested in your area, but once you have approached them, you may even explore more other partner organizations whom you may be interested in by checking with these other ones that are already known to you, and then you can even expand the network that you have. So always give yourself a room to even increase the kind of partners you want to have in your area of interest. Building successful partnerships, there are a number of points that you may want to look as well. Listen to your partner's needs, quite important. So, you know, we are saying that the purpose of partnership is to have mutual benefits. And we are saying that when you are in a partnership, it's like you are in a round table. You are all equal. So it's quite important that you also listen, give an opportunity to what your partner is saying. That's quite important. This message is quite important, more especially when you are partnering with you are a bigger institution, and then maybe you would want to partner with an institution at lower level comparing to yours. In most cases, you'll find that the bigger institutions may want to impose issues in a partnership. They may not give a chance to the smaller organizations also to share their views or to share their ideas. But these issues should be well understood at the beginning. You may need to agree how you'd want to communicate ideas and how you want to respect one another or each other in this kind of partnership. So it's quite important to listen to your partners because they may bring in quite important issues which may strengthen the partnership that you have. And find the common ground, find what is really bringing you together as partners. What is really strengthening your partnership? Is it a research idea? Is it that you're interested in the same kind of particular research beneficiaries? Or is it that there is this kind of a call that has come and both of you are interested to have you want to get this particular funding as well? So what is it that is bringing you together? And then focus much on that, because that will strengthen the partnership that you have. Another important element is to look at take time. You need to build trust, because what we should know here is you are working with partners whom maybe you don't know at the beginning, and maybe there are a number of partners in this case. So it really takes time to formulate that kind of partnership that you'd want. Especially at the beginning, it will start struggling. You will see that maybe sometimes some members are not joining the meetings, but you have to take your time and then you move slowly until this kind of partnership is well established. But in most cases, when we are starting a partnership, we have seen that some other partners are not really coming in. Sometimes we give up, but maybe they are doing that for other reasons. And it's better to understand why is it happening like that. And as partners discuss, how best can you improve that so that you are able to move together as partners. Important point, if it doesn't feel right, walk away. Okay, if you feel that you are starting a partnership, but maybe from the way you have seen how it has started, it's not really meeting the needs of your institution, the interest of your institution is quite good. It's not long to pull out. It's not long to walk away, but we have to do it nicely. We have to do it professionally, because at some point you may need this partner again. So it's not good just to cut off without giving proper communication while you're cutting off from this kind of partnership, but give reasons so that your partners should also understand, and then creating a room for further opportunities working with them. That's really an important point. But also another important point is we need to learn to say no to some partnership and collaborations. That's quite important as well. As I've said, we may have a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions you can partner with. They may even approach you to partner with them. In most cases, maybe because there's a call for a grant and we just want to maybe to increase our opportunity of winning a grant, widening our scope, we end up just saying, yes, I want to go into partnership with you. But going into a partnership or collaboration with an institution or institutions also require responsibilities. It requires a commitment. It requires dedication as well. So apart from maybe the monetary benefit you may have, look at, do you have time for this partnership? Sometimes if you don't have time for this partnership, if it's not really an area of your interest, in the end, you will find that you're not really contributing to this partnership. In the end, you may find that being in this partnership is something that is wasting your time, and that is not good. That's why it is quite important to carry out a preliminary assessment at the beginning and say, do you really need to be in this partnership or no? I need maybe to think otherwise. So always look into that and then make a proper decision as you are making, you're trying to look into issues of partnership with the fellow researchers. Important to question why think about impact and partnership now? It's never too late to start thinking about partnership. Sometimes we may want to go into a partnership with an organization, but sometimes we say, oh, maybe it's too late, or maybe there's no call where we can partner together and make a submission. But as long as your interests are the same, as long as you have a common goal, you will have a call later which you can join hands and then make a submission. So don't think that it's too late to make to go into a partnership with a particular institution. There is always that opportunity as long as you have some common grounds together to work together in all this. Identifying what's important to your beneficiaries and maybe the end users is quite important, but also you may need to look at the relevant policies, legislations, and practices that may formulate this kind of partnership. What can really bring you together as institutions in partnership? Best practices in building partnerships. So if you are in partnership, there are some other important elements to consider. Issues of governance structures, quite important. Mainly we are looking at maybe the organogram of this particular partnership, the structure to say who will take a lead and who will be responsible for X, who will be responsible for communication, and who will be responsible for calling up for meetings, and so on and so forth. If you are partnering to write a particular grant, you may want to share tasks. Who will be responsible for this section of the grant and for section Y of the grant? So the structure should be very clear from the beginning. Issues of communication, quite important as well. So you should come up with a mechanism on how you are going to communicate with your partnerships. What channels of communication are you going to use? And how will this be done? And what will be the frequency of some of the communication that have to be made? For example, if there's a need to be sharing reports, who will be responsible for this? And when we'll be doing this, and so on and so forth. Stakeholder involvement is quite important. You may have partnership, maybe 3 or 4 institutions coming together in a partnership, but you may want to involve other interested stakeholders in your partnership. Not necessarily only the 4 of you, but these other stakeholders may just bring in ideas. Maybe you may want to have a meeting where you want to discuss a particular research idea, and you know that though this particular stakeholder is not in our partnership, but involving him or her in this kind of research idea would add more value to our partnership. You may want to include that particular stakeholder so that you are able to lead it to generate more information as you are bringing your proposal together. And always consider issues of giving your partner members training opportunities. Like what is happening in this kind of workshop we are having here, where we are partnering with SARIMA and other research institutions, and there's an element of training opportunities happening, which is really good. And we want to benefit and build our capacity through such kind of partnerships. So whenever there's a possibility, arrange for that and always partner with other institutions to build capacity, more especially of the early career researchers in the process as well. It's not only for monetary benefit, but also other forms of benefits that may come in terms of career progression. Finding collaborators. So how can we find collaborators? There are a lot of collaborators across the globe. If you have new collaborators, it is good. You are widening your scope. There are fresh ideas coming in. You are broadening your network. And it would be easier even to articulate research ideas and even trying to understand research findings and so on and so forth. And even when you are disseminating your research findings, it's like you are amplifying the voice, because there's a lot of people who would want to share these research findings. But there are also some other disadvantages when you look at collaborations, and that should be taken into consideration when you're trying to collaborate with particular institutions. It's more work to find people, and sometimes you may not know who they are. You are always having that feeling that I'm going into this partnership, but I don't know this institution quite well, or I don't know whom I'll be working with. So you may really need to do your homework properly. You may want to ask around, what is this institution all about? If you are interested in 2 or 3 people from the institution, find more information about the people that we would want to partner with. What are their interests? You know, that will really strengthen. You are trying to prepare yourself for the kind of partnership that you would want to go into, rather than if you don't do this kind of homework and then you just go into a partnership when you're not really sure of this organization, or you're not really sure of individuals you're partnering with. That's when you find that while the partnership is in progress, you're not interested, you think it's not adding any value to you, or maybe the way they are communicating to you is not something that you were expecting. In the end, you walk away. And it's not good to do that, you know. So some of these things may need to be checked way before you move into a partnership. Look at the partner you want to go with, and then consider some of these issues. And don't assume anything. In a partnership from the beginning, clarify roles and expectations. For example, we can say that in partnership, you will carry out a research and then you publish a paper. You need to clarify who will be the first author and who will be the last author. These issues may need to come out clearly, okay? If you're partnering with institutions from the global north, institutions from the global south, you may need to make sure that there's kind of proper agreement to say who will be leading. Sometimes if you don't put these things properly, you may produce 5 papers from a research project. You find that all the authors are coming from one institution, but you have contributed equally, you know. So all those things may need to be taken into consideration. What is it that what are the conditions for someone to be the first author in a given paper? And what are the conditions for someone to be the last author in a given paper? These are some of the things that may need to be clear from the beginning as you're setting up your partnership. Otherwise, it brings frustrations on the way, and it may not end well. And that's not the purpose of trying to partner and collaborate with research institutions. Because we partner to strengthen the scope, but also for future even collaborations and future work we would want to have. Some helpful hints as we are moving towards the end of this presentation. We need to continue to recruit new partners over the course of the project. So you may start a project, but sometimes you say that maybe you have started with 3 partners and you want to go with these 3 up to the end. But sometimes there should be an opportunity. Be flexible. You can even recruit more partners on the way if you feel that this particular partner can add value to the work that we are doing. And you should be able to get these partners maybe through external events. Maybe you are having a conference and you have seen someone who is really interested in your work and you're also interested in his or her work. You may want to have a side discussion and then maybe even consider a kind of partnership. You may have some contact in the field where you're collecting data or doing something through community engagement. You may want to widen your partners in this particular project. And also maybe through social networking. These days we're talking the days of social networking. Sometimes you can also maybe get some interested partners and maybe work with you. Avoid misunderstandings is something that I've already said, similar to what I said initially. So there should be proper understanding from the beginning in terms of the expectations, intellectual property. That's another issue there. You may generate data, you may generate an innovation, but who owns this innovation? Is it all the partners in this collaboration? That point, this should come out clearly. Allow plenty of time to write proposals, give yourself more time, sharing responsibilities, and also acknowledge and factor in institutional differences and needs. That's quite important. Some institutions you may want to partner with are very local institutions. You need to know that they are local and they will have their own level of contribution. So always look at that and understand the partners that you are working with. Importantly, you should have a memorandum of understanding to avoid all these issues that we're talking about, to avoid being surprised on the way. Have a memorandum of understanding and make agreements there. And the memorandum of understanding should be very clear to say, how will you communicate? How will you share the tasks, and so on and so forth. So that's important. Don't start a partnership or a collaboration without a memorandum of understanding. That is very key to working in partnership. And also an assessment or self-assessment mechanism. As you're moving on with your partnership, you should stop at some point and say, oh, members, can we just assess ourselves? How are we progressing with this partnership? And be flexible to get ideas from all partners, and then try to improve where there are gaps that have been observed. And also a common reporting system should be provided. As I'm winding, we have these two questions we may want to ask ourselves. For instance, what can you be doing over the next year to set yourself up for future collaborations? So from now moving forward, how do you want to improve your partnership or maybe collaboration skills? But also, what is your group's burning impact question? What question do you have? And this way will help you also to understand what kind of institutions we may want to collaborate with that are also having the same kind of a question. So it's quite important to consider such kind of questions as you move on, trying to look for a future partner with your research ideas. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge the Makerere Regional Center for Crop Improvement for providing some of the information that I've shared here. And lastly, I would like to thank you so much for your attention. And if there are any questions, maybe we can discuss about them if we have the time. But otherwise, thanks and over.
Thank you, Kondrani. That was a really good presentation, and I'm sure the participants benefited from the information you shared. As we said earlier, we will take the questions later on in the Q&A section. I think we can move on to Aisha's presentation, and she has 2 slots. So the first one is Innovation Ecosystem. Aisha is from UWC in the Western Cape, University of the Western Cape. Okay, thank you, Aisha. If you can share your presentation.
Thanks, Yolande. I'm just gonna share my presentation quickly. Okay. I just want to make sure you can see.
Aisha, you're breaking up a bit, and we can't see the presentation yet. I think it's taking time to share. Okay, we've got it. Can just go on to presentation mode.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. It is on presentation mode.
Not on our side. I think there's a delay.
Okay. So I'm
Okay.
Aisha Muhammad Ali.
Aisha, your audio is it's breaking
Okay,
up. I'm
let's
not
try it
sure
again.
what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to maybe just try another network and see if that's better. Apologies for that. Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect. Thanks.
That better. Okay, great. And I am in presentation mode now. Are you able to see this?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Yolanda. Sorry about the little earlier on. So starting with the innovation ecosystem. Just a little bit about me. So I am a technology transfer manager at the University of the Western Cape Technology Transfer Office. My role encompasses really aspects of tech transfer, and I support researchers in translating their research outputs to the activities that I do include sourcing of funding, overseeing projects, fostering innovation, industry partnerships, license agreements, and also guidance to our researchers. I've got experience in innovation, and manage a very diverse portfolio at UWC, and also serve as a secretariat on our company, UWCI. Previously, I worked at a funding institution, the Technology Innovation Agency, a startup in biotech. Yeah, I have a degree in microbiology and a postgrad diploma in business administration. So just upfront, I'd like to mention a lot of the slides are based on the resource mobilization toolbox, and a presentation by Dr. Douglas and Nyahumbi on technology innovation ecosystems, and the International Development Innovation Alliance, who published a report on strengthening innovation ecosystems. So essentially, I'd like to share some information on tips on creating an innovation ecosystem, and providing some information on the role of early stage funders. And after this, I hope that you'd have a good ecosystem ease and the role players involved. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's start off with what is innovation. By definition, innovation is a process of bringing about new ideas, methods, products, or services or solutions that have a significant positive impact and value. It's really about creating ideas and turning them into practical solutions, boost efficiency, improve effectiveness, or to solve unmet needs. Innovation doesn't have to be only technological. So it also involves new ways to solve problems, improve processes, and taking risks. It's driven by curiosity, creativity, and a mindset to change and experimentation. So innovation leads to economic growth, social progress, and better living conditions. I think it's important to remember that once you have an idea, and if it's not reduced to practice or applied at scale, it still remains an idea. Okay, this is the innovation process, and you'll see this this picture in a lot of it. It's taking a compelling market need and coming up with a number of ideas, turning that to an invention, which is then further developed through an appropriate technology solution and translated using a feasible business model to the market. There are a number of steps involved, and I'll go through this a bit on in the next presentation. So what is an innovation ecosystem then? So an innovation ecosystem is a network of resources and conditions that will create development of. Why would you want to do that? To build a network to address a very complex challenge. And this challenge could not be addressed individually. It also provides a supportive and enabling environment for innovation to flourish. In terms of looking at it from a funder's perspective of funding innovation, and often you find that innovations would reach a certain point and they'd drop out, during the valley of death. And it's to overcome this valley of death by providing consistent funding, sufficient funding, and relevant funding to success. Okay, the key features of an innovation system. So these include having a holistic focus, and innovation ecosystems usually take an holistic approach by prioritizing the collective value generated through interconnected efforts. and focusing. Innovation ecosystems are dynamic. They're always changing. There's new players coming in all the time, and they all improve. You'll find that they would have a common theme of sharing. So sharing resources, infrastructure, work towards common goals. Ecosystems have networks, and these are integrated capacity. This is done to integrate resource capacities in effective ways.
Sorry, Aisha.
When would
Sorry.
you really build an ecosystem?
Aisha, sorry to
yes?
interrupt. I don't know, your sound
Sorry,
is, sorry to interrupt the flow of your presentation. The sound is a bit, it's breaking up. It's maybe the handling of your mic. I'm not sure, somebody suggested it. So I'm not sure if you yeah, if you can just maybe move closer, or Armand, do you have a suggestion?
I think it's a connection issue.
okay.
Okay.
Let me. Okay. Yeah. I have power out.
Is it the power outage on your side?
So my camera.
Okay, yeah, it's covered up.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe it will be better.
Okay, so I'll try without the video. And it shows full cinema. If there's anything else I can do, should I try and make the sound louder? It's a connection. My connection is unstable. Okay. Yolanda, I'm going to try and carry on. And see. Okay, so when would you want to build an ecosystem? It's really necessary when you're tackling long-term complex challenges that usually cannot be solved by a single organizer or consortium. And it does require a coordinated effect. Okay, so these are the key players in innovation ecosystem. They include your research institutions, funders, government, and we'll go through them a little bit more here. So your research institutions, they are essentially the ones that create the knowledge and generate the ideas. And they train students, so they really output a lot of innovators and entrepreneurs that are key to any innovation ecosystem. They provide the resources and they de-risk in their operation, build capacity, infrastructure, the strategy of an ecosystem. And then you have the institutions that really take the solutions to the marketplace, and they are your startups who are generally agile to drive innovations to the market, as private companies who provide the resources to catalyze and scale innovation. NGOs also play an important role because they advocate and encourage participation, and your market facilitators and intermediaries, they link different organizations within an ecosystem, and they facilitate to transfer ideas to help commercialization at scale. They're also very agile and neutral partners. They're also quite key in innovation ecosystems. These are people with a diverse set of skills They normally have entrepreneurial mindsets and the passion to drive innovation forward. They also are risk takers and are less averse to risk when making their decisions. This is just another way of depicting the innovation ecosystem. And if you see on top, you have your funders. And it just shows where in the innovation process they normally play a role. You normally have your grant funders, government funders early on, and your venture capital funders, commercial banks, and private equity funders later on. This also depicts where the players play a role, like your inventors, which are normally early on in the process, and your professional managers, which are normally later on in the process. And there's other service providers as well, like your lawyers, your mentors, and NGOs, etc., that could play a role along the entire process of innovation, and your government enablers as well. Okay, so if we look at just the early stage funders and what role do they play in innovation ecosystems? They provide research funds, so they offer the initial funding to help researchers and entrepreneurs to develop and test their ideas, often before they have proof of concept or commercial viability. They support proof of concept, so they fund very early stage projects to demonstrate the feasibility of these innovative ideas, which is critical for attracting further investment. They also encourage risk-taking. So by funding these high-risk, high-reward projects, they enable researchers and startups to explore these novel approaches and technologies that may otherwise be too risky. They facilitate collaboration. They help bridge the gap between academia and industry by funding projects that encourage partnerships and collaborative research. They also play a role in building infrastructure. So they support the development of university-based laboratories, equipment, and other resources that nurture early stage innovations. And they help to the potential of innovative ideas, which makes it easier for funding processes. Okay. So to have a successful innovation or a successful innovation system, it's really about the convergence of capital and creating a culture that promotes and celebrates innovation and entrepreneurship, as well as an enabling environment in terms of policies and regulation and incentives that all lead to successful innovation. And if you look at this in a bit more detail, if you look at knowledge, it's really the intellectual assets that are derived from research institutions that is needed. And in terms of human, it's the skills that people have. There's the financial capital as well, which is having the appropriate funding and investment instruments, having the physical setup as well, the infrastructure, the things like power, which we're struggling with right now, you know, water connectivity, having incubators, and setting up in an attractive market so that there is a market to sell products and sell these innovative ideas. And of course, then establishing the networks of businesses, funders, and entrepreneurs. So in Africa, we find that we generally need to strengthen our human resources, have appropriate equipment, have reliable infrastructure, and have effective and efficient regulatory approval and procurement systems, all in order to have a successful innovation system. So I'm going to stop there for now. And I don't know, Yolanda, if we're going to do questions now or later on.
Is there any
Otherwise,
questions?
I can move to the next presentation.
Okay, I think, yeah, thanks, Aisha. Let's move on to the next presentation, and then we'll take questions afterwards if there's time. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next topic is technology transfer and commercialization. And once again, I'd like to acknowledge more or less the same resources. Okay, so what is technology transfer? So technology transfer is really the taking of research activities that is converted to research outputs and outcomes in the forms of publication, processes, materials, technologies that have been developed, know-how and skills. And this is transferred through means like publishers, training, consultancy, licensing, creating companies, or even collaborative and contract research to industry and society, and in order to create impact. Okay. If you look at the research outputs and outcomes, a lot of this is intellectual assets, and these intellectual assets can be protected in terms of intellectual property protection means. And WIPO did a study earlier this year, and they looked at how much IP is there in a potato. And I thought this would be a nice example to demonstrate just the different types of IP that you can get and the different protection means. So if you look at patents, there's machines like a potato cutter or a potato fryer or scrubber. These machines be protected in the form of patents. If you look at potato chip manufacturers, usually trademark their names, or something like Mr. Potato Head, which is trademark by Disney. And this just helps you to recognize a brand, and it gives the company ownership of that brand. Okay, a potato peeler, normally it's a long handle and the metal bit on top that that is used to peel a potato. And if you look at the image here, you see this is a rounded shape that fits in your hand, and that's a different design, a different way that this potato peeler is made. And it may have some functional properties to it as well. And this is this can be protected in the form of a registered design. Copyright is another form of protection, and an example in the potato scenario would be a collection of potato recipes that's put in a book and is copyrighted. Trade secrets, so a potato manufacturer would produce a secret flavored chips, and the ingredients to that flavor is protected via a trade secret, so that's not shared with anyone. And then when you have new cultivars of potatoes that are developed, those can be protected as well using plant breeders' rights. Okay. So looking at the innovation process again, and if you look at the potato and maybe producing a potato cutting machine. Normally, all of those IP protection strategies would fit somewhere in here, depending on the solution that that has been derived. Okay, this is just to give you a better understanding of the innovation process, and I will relate the innovation process to the technology transfer office and the activities that we do. So essentially it starts with needs finding or identifying a problem that needs to be solved. And a number of ideas would be generated to solve that problem. And some work would be done in a lab, and then you'd have a proof of concept that is done. And then with further development and validation work, you'd have a validated prototype that's developed, which is then tested in the market, and getting feedback. That prototype is then tweaked, and then you'd have your market-ready products that is produced. And then it is upscaled to see that it can be produced at industry scale. And you'd secure your supply chain and distribution channels. And finally, the product is launched into the market and it is sold to its target customers. And it's solving then a problem for the user. So this whole process of innovation happens sometimes at the university, and there are various functions that support innovation at the university. So I'm going to go through the two main ones, which is the research management function and the technology transfer function. So research management, they usually support researchers, primarily pre and post research grant award services, in identifying and securing research funding, in managing the research grants process, and in managing contractual relationships with research funders, which include the financial reporting obligations. This is typically done for early stage projects, normally from your needs finding phase to your concept design phase, which is technology readiness level 1 to 3. I'll talk a little bit about technology readiness levels later on. And then the tech transfer function usually comes a bit later on, where we support, facilitate, and promote the identification, protection, and commercialization of institutions' intellectual assets, which includes the intellectual property, which has the potential to create social or economic value. We work with the research management offices and other support functions to support innovation project pre and post grant award services. And it's typically for your later stage projects. And that is more from concept design to support functions are such synergistic and complementary. And the research management usually is a precursor for technology and innovation. Okay. So innovation project activities are slightly different to research project activities, and these are typically managed through the Tech Transfer Office. These activities include development of a market offering, regulatory compliance type of projects, assessment of the market, looking at its industry attractiveness, doing some techno-economic viability studies, looking at IP opportunities, and creating a team that would be able to take the innovation to the market, and also looking at development of commercialization strategies. I just want to go through the difference between research and innovation project activities. So research project activities, in terms of its objective and focus, it's to expand knowledge, gain new insights, and explore hypotheses. And normally it is, its focus is really to generate new knowledge or understanding in a particular field. If you look at innovation projects, their objective is to create new products, processes, or services that create socioeconomic impact. And its focus, it's really more practical application and implementation of new ideas. In terms of outputs and outcomes for research activities, it's publications and presentations. And whereas for innovation project activities, we're looking at developing tangible products that can be implemented in the market. Research project activities usually has a lower level of risk and uncertainty, whereas innovation project activities they normally have higher levels of risks and uncertainties. In terms of team composition for research, the team usually involves subject matter experts, and they focus on conducting experiments, data analysis, and theoretical exploration. Whereas for innovation, it's usually a diverse team with mixed skill sets and experience. So you probably need someone with technical skills to develop the product, someone with entrepreneurial skills that would be willing to take this to the market, marketing skills, financial skills. And for research projects, it's grant funding with no, whereas for innovation projects, there's various funding instruments that can be considered. And usually there is some sort of expected return on investment. Typically for research projects, they range from TRL 1 to 3. And for innovation projects, it's 3 to 9. Okay, and just in terms of the TRLs, this is, if you're not too familiar with it, it really defines a technology stage of maturity and ensures the same understanding of stage and of development. Okay, so if you look at the TTO's functions and how they support researchers across the innovation process, these blocks in blue just list the functions. We do have seed fund management, and in South Africa, it's a seed fund from the Technology Innovation Agency that is managed by the technology transfer offices at the universities. And most universities also would have their own internal seed fund that manages the innovation projects that come out of the university. Typically, after seed fund, we try and source technology development funding, and we assist researchers with the application and management processes. And once you have your product that's ready to go into the market, we assist with startup creation, business model support, pitching, coaching, etc. We also get involved in license negotiations and deal structuring. I'll explain a little bit about that later on, and that's really to take the products or the innovations that the researchers develop to the market. And then there are some processes or some functions that the TTO helps with throughout the innovation process, and that is contracting, and we assist within funding agreements, research collaboration agreements, MTAs, SLAs, etc., IP awareness and policies, and then, of course, the IP protection and IP maintenance functions. Okay, and this is a function that the TTO spends a lot of their time on in our university. And we are involved in the seed fund call, the preparation and distribution of it, and then working with researchers to prepare these applications. We review them and select. We also work with the project initiation, and this is where awarded projects are set up and all funds are in separate entities, so then it's easier to track and manage. We also look at project management and reporting. And this is normally milestone based and stage gated. And then the end of the project, project closure. So there is a seed fund committee that is set up here, and they are involved in decision making and oversight of seed fund projects. But the ultimate decision is usually made with the funder. And just in terms of people involved, we have a portfolio manager that oversees the entire seed fund portfolio. And then we have specific technology transfer project managers who have individual projects that they support researchers to manage and report on. There's an administrator that coordinates a lot of the activities, and the director who is also a chairperson of the seed fund committee. So the seed fund has been really great at universities, and there are a number of outcomes that are generated from this, and they really help the progression of innovations to the next TR or TRL, or help them move along the innovation process so that they move more towards market. It also helps us to do feasibility assessments quite early on. If it's not feasible, then we stop fund projects that are not going to make it. It allows for the validation of the innovation and of the prototypes. And it positions a lot of these innovations for follow-on funding active to other investors. It also fosters collaboration with industry and SMMEs. A lot of the time, SMMEs do not have funding to undertake these research projects, and by partnering with us, they're able to do research and innovation. Okay, and then just to conclude, at the end of the innovation process, we really have to take these to the market. And we have a number of strategies. We do this through licensing it to an existing company or to a startup or spin-out company. There's also assignment or sales. So in licensing, you give the rights of the intellectual assets or intellectual property to another company to use to commercialize. And with assignment, you are selling your rights. So you sell it to another company, to an existing company or startup, and the new company then is able to freely commercialize. In South Africa assignment usually requires NIPMO permission. NIPMO is it's the National Intellectual Property Management Office, which governs how IP is regulated in South Africa. Okay, another commercialization strategy is contract research, where industry would collaborate with the university to do a certain piece of work, and any IP generated from that can either be licensed or assigned to that company. Consultancy, so the skills, yes, company society through consultancy. There's also the open source route and direct sales of products and services, which our university doesn't do too much of direct sales because it's completely set up to do that. And thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Aisha. This is really, really insightful. I'm sure everyone enjoyed this presentation. I think we will take questions because we have quite a lot of time left. Is there anyone on the chat that, the questions was posted on the chat, but I think we can deal with it now. So can people maybe post their questions to Aisha so that she can interact and answer some of those questions that you have? And yeah. Anyone?
Okay. The chat has been busy, so I'm trying to.
The chat has been busy. Maybe you should look at the chat, Aisha, and then answer the questions.
Extract, yeah. I hope you could hear me. I saw my connection was breaking up every now and then.
Yeah, I think there was
Okay.
a delay in your your sound coming through. There's a hand up. Jabril,
Okay.
can you unmute? Arman, can you just unmute Jabril, please? I'm not sure if it's... Oh, okay.
Voilà. Merci.
Thank you.
Pour la première présentation, j'avais posé la question dans le chat, à savoir quelle est la frontière entre la recherche et l'innovation. Et est-ce qu'un innovateur peut être considéré comme, dans la nomenclature internationale, l'innovateur est considéré comme un scientifique ou chercheur? Et pour la deuxième présentation, là, c'est par rapport à la propriété intellectuelle. Donc, pour cette raison, donc les chercheurs, souvent, sont obligés de breveter leurs résultats de recherche. Or, en brevetant, cela va entraîner un coût élevé du produit sur le marché, si on considère, par exemple, les semences des cultures. Et donc, cela aura pour conséquence pour qu'à la fin, les utilisateurs finaux ne soient pas accessibles aux produits à cause du produit élevé, surtout en Afrique. Donc, en ce moment, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Voici mes 3 préoccupations. Merci.
Okay, thank you, Jabril. We will ask Ross if she's on the to come in to translate for us, Ross, or somebody else if that is.
Hi.
J'ai posé les questions là dans le chat.
Okay,
Yolanda?
Ross.
En anglais.
Deborah is our French translator, so I've asked her if she could come in and translate.
Okay, Deborah, can you help, please?
OK. Pour la première présentation, la question était, quelle est la différence, quelles sont les frontières entre la recherche et l'innovation? Et un innovateur est-il considéré comme un scientifique ou un chercheur dans la nomenclature internationale? Pour la seconde présentation, je disais que pour des raisons de propriété intellectuelle, les résultats de la recherche sont souvent brevetés. Or, quand on brevette, le produit devient cher sur le marché, ce qui va entraîner souvent que ce produit ne soit plus accessible aux utilisateurs finaux, que sont souvent nos agriculteurs de subsistance. En ce moment, que faire? Voilà, merci.
Thanks, Deborah. Deborah, if you can
Yes.
just quickly translate for us.
Ah.
Yolanda.
Yes,
I don't
Yeah, I
understand.
think let's take it back and I can help with that.
Okay, thanks.
Gibril, est-ce que tu peux reprendre? Je vais traduire. On va doucement.
OK. Ma première question, c'est quelle est la frontière entre la recherche et l'innovation?
Yeah, for the first question, he wants to know what is the difference between research and innovation.
Maintenant, dans la nomenclature internationale, l'innovateur est-il considéré comme un scientifique ou un chercheur?
Based on international standard, can we consider an innovator as a scientist or a researcher? This is the first question.
Pour la seconde présentation,
For a second presentation,
donc pour des raisons de propriété intellectuelle, les
for
produits
IP
de la-
reasons, for intellectual property reasons,
voilà, les résultats de la recherche sont souvent brevetés.
yeah, research outcomes are patented.
Or, le brevetage va entraîner un coût élevé du produit sur le marché.
And we know that patenting will also add costs to the product on the market, so the cost will be higher.
Donc, ça fait que souvent, le produit devient inaccessible aux utilisateurs finaux que sont les agriculteurs de subsistance en Afrique.
So this brings the product to a higher price, and so final users most of the time don't have access to the product because of the high cost.
En ce moment, que faire?
In that case, what to do?
Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hisha. Can you take those questions, please?
Thank you. So your first question, the difference between research and innovation. So research usually done to generate knowledge and to understand a field of study, whereas innovation is knowledge a step further and products that can be then implemented in a marketplace. In terms of your international nomenclature, is the innovator a scientist, a researcher? Yeah, so I think the innovator can be a scientist or a researcher, because the innovator is someone that comes up with these new ideas and then they develop it and test it, and then develop and testing, and then it's trying to get it into the marketplace. I hope I answered that for you. And can I move on to the second question?
Gibril, j'espère que tu as compris quand même, hein? Gibril?
Oui, oui, oui.
Tu as compris la réponse?
Oh, oui.
Okay, so he got it.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so your second question, okay, for IP reasons, research outcomes are patented and patents add costs. Okay, so yes, patents do add costs and increase the cost of the final product, and I do understand that. But sometimes if you do not protect and you do not patent, then, if you take in this product to the market, anyone else can duplicate what you have, and there's no way of protecting your product. And in that sense, your company might not be able to then move forward, and your company, could become bankrupt because there's no way of protecting anyone else from copying your idea and taking it to the marketplace.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so very much, presenter. May I probably make it clear for Gibril at this level.
Yes.
Gabriel, elle confirme, Aïcha te confirme que le brevetage, c'est vrai, ça ajoute un coût au produit final, mais c'est un passage obligé, dans le sens où sans le brevetage, on peut vous pirater ou quelqu'un d'autre peut prendre votre propriété intellectuelle. Et donc, le coût final du produit doit prendre en compte aussi le coût du brevetage. C'est tout ça qui fait le coût du produit. C'est dommage que souvent, ça devient cher, mais c'est un passage obligé.
Ouais.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Pierre. Did we go through all the questions? I'm sure. Was there another question, Aisha? I think that was all. Maybe anybody?
We have a question from Kenya.
Okay. Can we go through the chat, Aisha, and just maybe look at the questions?
Yeah, we had a challenge in raising the hand.
Okay.
Yes, do you permit us?
We have Rabera and Flora.
Yes, Flora, we're using our phone.
Okay, can you go with continue with your question?
Thank you. We are using it together because I wasn't able to register yesterday. My name is Anthony Bayaki, Technology Transfer Officer or Manager, Moi University, Kenya, Eldoret. Aisha mentioned something about when there are projects, there is a technology transfer officer pegged on each project. Does it mean the university has several technology transfer officers, each engaging a project? That would be very interesting. Number two, permit me to comment on the last person's question. There is this belief that patents add to the prices of products, and that is kind of something which is spoken a lot in Africa and kind of scares the markets. But I want to comment that we need to move out of that mindset. If products are patented, they do not necessarily increase prices exponentially. It's not really that's the case. What we should encourage each other in Africa is we build what we call a copying capacity. Things that are patented are not necessarily for the purpose of not copying. We need to develop a copying capacity so that we copy what has been patented and develop that technology the way India and China have been doing. And the patents just give us as an opportunity to use the technology that exists legally. Yeah, so we shouldn't be scared, and it's not necessarily that they add prices, because sometimes not patenting means products will not be developed because no companies want to, most companies don't want to take up a product that is good for everyone. Developing involves money, and patenting helps companies have the confidence to take up a technology and develop it to consumption. So those are the advantages of patenting, apart from their prices. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. Yes, no, I agree, and it's really all about sustainability that, you know, it's going to help companies thrive in the marketplace as well. So your question, so we don't have one technology transfer manager per project. We usually take a few projects, so we have sub portfolios within that bigger portfolio. The way we work at our university is we work with innovation projects from the beginning right up until it's commercialized. And each technology transfer professional will have a number of projects under them that they manage and that they see through the entire process. Thank you.
Thanks, Aisha. I think we will just take Roberto's question. His hand is up, and then we will move on to the next presentation, and then again come back to all these questions in the Q&A. I think we have about 45 minutes for that. Maybe we can push it to an hour if people are prepared to stay. But yeah, we will take Roberto's question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. I'm Rivera from the Kenya Biovax Institute, and I was curious to know what Aisha's experience is in technology transfer from a commercial perspective beyond now the universities. Is it possible for you to possibly share your experience in brief? And then, of course, I will be in touch later on to be able to have a further discussion with you.
Oh, great. Okay, so my experience beyond the university is a little bit limited. I have spent some time at the Technology Innovation Agency and more towards it more involves like the beginning processes where innovations were still being created and inventions still being developed. So I'm not sure I'm going to answer your question correctly. Yeah, it really is very limited to my experience at the university. I'm going to leave it at that, and I think we can have a discussion maybe later on with specific aspects that you'd like to know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think, yeah, this is a
Hello.
Florence, we will take the questions in Q&A session, if you don't mind. If you can get through the presentation. Arman, can you just mute the mics, please? If we, when we move to the Q&A session, we will take the questions. I know this is a very important topic, and as you know, we are implementing TTO officers in our universities, you know, to understand this complex environment is not easy, and it's ever evolving. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Ross, do you have your hand up? Ross?
Sorry, Yolanda, no, I was just going to say that I put the questions in the chat for Aisha, but I'll put them in a document for the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you. Our next presenter is going to talk about research impact or communicating research impact, and it is Charles Wendo. Charles, if you are ready with your presentation, we can then start. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Please bear with me for a moment as I share my screen. Okay, great. Thank you once again. So the topic we are looking at today in the next 15 minutes is communicating research impact with a focus on funders of research. I'll say a few things about myself very quickly so that we can move on. One, I find myself in the middle of between research and the media and the world out there, because I'm a veterinary doctor, but I've spent a lot of time working on communication, including being in the media as a journalist, and also my postgraduate studies are all in the communications, whereas my bachelor's was in veterinary medicine. I have also supported universities to introduce science, journalism, and communication into their curricula. And to support that, I have written a book titled Science Communication Skills for Journalists. I have media experience, more than 16 years working in the newspaper. And I've also had some leadership roles related to the media and the scientific world. And in my current position, I work with SciDevNet, which is part of CABI, as the training coordinator. And my job is to deliver training to researchers on how to communicate, but also to deliver training to journalists on how to report science. And quite interestingly, bringing journalists and researchers together. And SciDevNet SADNet is the leading online source of science, of news about science and development for the global South. And also I need to mention that SciDevNet is the leading provider of science communication training in the global South. So with that brief introduction, let's go into the topic. What is research impact? I am speaking to people that know about research impact better than I do, but nevertheless, I will just mention that there are two aspects. There's the academic impact, and then there's the social impact. As someone in the middle of communicating science, I tend to pay more attention to social impact. Social impact, that is what is most noticed by the public, by the policymakers, and even by funders. And inevitably, in most of today's presentation, I will talk about research impact as though it is just socio-economic impact. Again, I will talk a little bit about funders. We need to, if you're going to communicate the impact of your research to funders, you need to analyze funders as an audience. In communication, you are the one sending the information to an audience. But unless you understand that audience, it will be very difficult for you to communicate effectively. So I need to mention here that to capture people's attention and to make sure they are able to capture people's attention and you communicate effectively, you need first and foremost to relate your findings or innovations to topics that matter to them. And then secondly, you need to explain your findings or innovations using words that they are able to understand. And this is quite important because the people that you're going to interact with in these funding institutions, many of them are not specialists in your field. Some of them are not even scientists, but even if they were scientists, they are not necessarily specialists in your field. So it is very easy to use words that they don't understand, and then you do not succeed in your communication. So then the other thing is that you need to reach them with information about your research, about the impact of your research through platforms where they normally get their information. You need to find them where they are, as opposed to expecting them to come to you where you are. In a nutshell, you need to have a good understanding of your audience, and in this case, your audience are the funders. Okay, so I will give 3 tips to make you to help you succeed in doing that. 1, you need to make your information understandable to the people that you are communicating with. And like I said before, these funding institutions have people that are not necessarily scientists, and even if they were, they are not experts necessarily in your field. Many of them are not. So you need to communicate to them in a way that any other non-specialists would be able to understand. And one of the things you do is to narrow down your information to something that, scale it down to something that non-specialists can relate with and understand. And to do this successfully, you need to first and foremost state your main point in just 1 to 2 sentences. Then you have a focused message that is easier for people to understand, that is easier for people to relate with. Many times when you write an academic paper, you might write 6,000 words, 10,000 words, but not many people in these funding agencies will sit down and read 10,000 words or 6,000 words of your paper. So what then do you do? There is what you would normally put in the conclusion of your paper or your research paper. That is what will normally catch their attention. So you go straight to that, and outline that in one sentence, and then whether you are writing a report, whether you're making a conference presentation, once you start with that one sentence, it becomes easier for you to focus your communication. Otherwise, it's very easy to say little bits here and there of different things, and you're not really focusing on any impact that you want the funder to know about. Then the other thing, and we'll have another slide later to look to go into more detail about that. Then the other thing I need to mention is that you need to avoid scientific terms and even acronyms. Acronyms can be so confusing. When you talk, yesterday I was talking about someone who knows about AI as artificial insemination in livestock. So he went into a meeting where many people were talking about AI, and he was wondering why they were talking about artificial insemination in a situation where it was not relevant, only to realize later that they are talking about artificial intelligence. So try as much as possible to avoid acronyms, because they confuse people. Some acronyms are not known to most people, but also some acronyms mean different things under different circumstances. Also, scientific terms, most people would not be familiar with your scientific terms unless they are specialists in your area. Then the third thing, and we're going to look at examples of that, you need to, instead of those scientific terms, you need to find everyday words that most people can relate with and understand. Then number three, if you must use scientific terms, then you must explain. Now, I put this here because under some circumstances, you need to use certain scientific terms. Many times you can avoid them, but under certain circumstances, some terms must be used. But still, make sure you explain them so that someone who is not a specialist will be able to understand them. And then the other technique is to be able to compare sizes and shapes and so on with something that people are familiar with. Are you talking about this fruit or this organ, which is about 9 inches in diameter? Most people out there, even if they have gone to school, if you tell them something is 9 inches diameter, they may not be able to easily visualize it. But if you tell them this is about the size of a soccer ball, then they will most likely have seen a soccer ball, so they will understand what you're talking about. And then, as much as possible, use images and audio. These images may be infographics, they may be photos, whatever they are. Images help people to understand what you're trying to explain. And then you need to limit the use of numbers and statistics. And I have quite often researchers researchers who carry out quantitative studies engage me in an argument over this. They tell you, I have done a lot of work to get these my statistics. So why are you limiting me from using them? And the answer I usually give them is that it's not about you. It's about the people that you're communicating with. It's a bit like in business, they tell you the customer is king. In communicating your research, the receiver of this message, the audience, is king. So you communicate what the audience will be able to understand. You communicate what the audience will be able to relate with. You communicate what the audience is most likely to find relevant, as opposed to what you think is important from your own perspective. All right, I will give in the next slide, I will give a few examples. Now, if there was a lot of time, we would have gone into an activity of asking you to try and find simple alternatives for these words and phrases that I have listed here. And it's almost always possible to find another word or another phrase that you can use when communicating with people that are not specialists in your field. And in the next slide, I will give you the answers to this, though you will not have done it yourself as an exercise. Look at these examples. photovoltaic modules. Electrical engineers will tell you about photovoltaic modules when they simply mean solar panels. They will tell you about the people in geology will tell you about hydrocarbon reservoirs when they are simply meaning oil and gas deposits. You know, someone tells you about the agrarian community when they simply mean farmers. Geriatric population when they simply mean the elderly. Climate smart maize, the simple language for the ordinary person, people that are not specialists in your field, is simply drought resistant maize. Look at this number 6, olfactory receptor usage, when simply they mean smell. And number 7, spatio-temporal precipitation patterns, when simply they mean where and when rain falls. So it is always possible to find an alternative word or an alternative phrase that you can use to communicate the same thing. So this helps you to avoid, using scientific terms that people do not understand. And when you use scientific terms that people don't understand, you do not succeed in communicating your research impact. Why are you communicating anyway? Why are you communicating your research impact? There are a number of reasons why you are communicating, but if you do not communicate successfully, then you do not achieve that. Maybe you are looking for funding. You perhaps would have got that funding if you used words that people understood. And because you used words that people could not understand, maybe you missed the funding. Or maybe you've already got the funding, you've already done the work, you are trying to show that you used the money well and you have impact. But then unless you communicate successfully, you will not be able to demonstrate the impact that you have made. Then the second tip that I would like to give you is that make the information relevant. Make the information relevant. Like I said before, it's not about you. You are not the king. The person you are communicating with is the king. You're trying to deliver the information to them in order that they can do something with that information. Whenever you are delivering information to someone, you are trying to get that person to do something with that information, whether you want to simply shape their thinking or you want them to use that information to do something. But you are never going to succeed in doing that if they ignore you. You need to get them to pay attention to you first and receive your message, receive your information, in order that they can then use that information for something else that you intend them, that you would like them to do. But they will not just listen to you for the sake, they will not just listen to you because you are talking, they will not just simply read your document because you've written it, they will read it because they find it relevant. They will find it relevant. Sometimes it's a report and they are under obligation to read it. That's a different situation. But most of the time, they are not under obligation to read it. So you make the information relevant to them so that they are able to see the need to read your information, the need to listen to you. So select aspects of your research that the public and policymakers and funders will most likely be interested in, and that will be your main the focus of your communication. Then you need to relate the findings to the most pressing needs of the society. The people that give you money to carry out scientific research, most of the time, or many of the times, they are trying to have impact on society. Sometimes they are giving you money to carry out research so that they can develop a product that they can sell. That's another matter. But many times the people that give you money want to have impact on society. And they think through your research, through your innovation, they can help to make society a better place. So it becomes important to relate to relate your work to the things that that society cares about. Again, you need to humanize the research findings. That's one of the ways to help to get people interested in your information. Usually, why do we carry out scientific research anyway? If I had an opportunity to have a discussion with you on why you carry out scientific research, it will all come down to people. There are many reasons you do research, but it can be narrowed down to people. You carry out research about people, you carry out research because of people, you carry out research with people, and you carry out research on people. So it is always possible to humanize, to find a human connection to your research. And then number 4, you can identify a window of opportunity when an issue is on most people's minds. The example that I like to give here is at one point the president of Uganda said because wheat had become expensive and therefore wheat products were becoming more expensive, and this happened because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, and because a lot of the wheat that we consume here was being imported from those countries. So when that war started, it affected the supply of wheat and the price went up. So the president told people that don't complain about rising prices of wheat products. If bread is too expensive, then eat cassava. Cassava is, I think most of Africa, we would call it cassava, but in some countries, people might call it tapioca, or other countries, people might call it yuca. And the president said, if bread is expensive, just eat cassava. And it became a sensitive topic on such. Yes, please.
5 more minutes, thanks.
5 minutes, great, thank you. So it became a very sensitive topic on social media. It became a trending topic on social media, very controversial. And at that point, cassava researchers in Uganda used it as an opportunity to release information about their research on cassava at a time when people were paying attention to cassava because of the statement of the president. Then, so if you are to make your information relevant to funders, you need to think a bit about funders. What are their main interests and priorities? And this will vary. Different funders have different interests and priorities. So you need to find out what those interests and priorities are. And therefore, what are their information needs? And why do they need this information from you anyway? Sometimes it is because they want to make a good name for themselves. They have funded research that is having impact on society. But sometimes they also want to be accountable to their own funders, because funders also have funders. So sometimes they just want to be accountable to the upstream funders. Sometimes it's a different reason. So you need to have in mind why they need that information, and that will help you in packaging the information for them. And then what are their key concerns about the topic that you are communicating on? And then the third and last tip is that you need to find them. You need to find them where they are. Who are you trying to reach with your information about your research? Who are these funders? Where and how do they normally get their news? Is it on social media? Is it on the mainstream media? Which other platforms? Or do they simply rely on reports from you? So you need to have an idea where they normally get their information beyond the reports that you deliver to them. Where else can you place information about your impact so that they can find it there? And then in what format should that information be packaged? So still on that topic of finding them where they are, I just wanted you to reflect on this, on these different ways of reaching donors. And I pose a question here. Which of these from which of these channels do your funders normally get their information generally? On which of these, through which of these channels are you most likely to catch them? And there are no wrong or right answers. It's about what is your organization and who are the funders that you are dealing with, because different funders are present on different information channels. If we had time, we would have gone into a discussion on the pros and cons of each of these. And then finally, I needed to mention here that to be able to communicate successfully to your funders, or even to a policymaker, or indeed to anyone about the impact of your research, you need to begin with a one-sentence summary of the impact that you want to communicate. And I needed to have clarified, sometimes you are communicating impact that already exists, and sometimes you are communicating the potential impact. We are planning to do this, and this is going to be the impact. We have done this, and we've reached this level, and the impact is likely to be this. Or we have already done this, and we've already seen this impact. So either way, you need to be able to summarize that in one sentence. You must be able to state in one clear and simple sentence, state how your research finding or innovation has benefited society or will potentially benefit society. It should be easy to say, possible to say that in one sentence. And then that one sentence becomes the theme statement around which you build the rest of your communication. If you had an opportunity to make a presentation to the funder, that one theme statement should be your main statement that you keep coming back to. You build the whole presentation around that one statement. If you had to write a media article of 800 words or a blog of 500 words, still that becomes your theme statement, and everything else that you write in the 800 or 500 words becomes supportive information to support that one statement. So with that, again, that's the summary. You need to speak in words that people understand. You need to make the information relevant to them, and you need to reach them where they are. Reach them on channels and platforms where they normally access information, as opposed to coming to you to look for your information wherever you have placed it. So once again, thank you so much for participating.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you. That was really good. I mean, we all have to communicate our science, and I mean, this is part of showing our impact to society and to policymakers. You know, and when we do our impact statement, you know, in our research proposals, we have to show how we're going to do the science communication. I mean, when we are looking at communities, and we have to communicate with communities where we get our data from, I mean, it has to be simple language and in the language that they understand. So thanks for that. It was really insightful. I think I think Ross will, if you can just unshare your presentation, and then Ross will. I don't know if the presenters that are on the are in the room. It's Aisha, Ngoni, Nosisa, Charles, you're here, and Kodwani. I'm not sure if he's here because he had to go to another meeting. If you can just maybe go through the questions. We have about 50 minutes to go through the questions, and then we can just that we copied from the chat, and then we can just go through it and see if it can be answered, or comments can be made around it, and yeah, and then we will get to the end of our day. So Ross, can you just put it on presentation mode because it's very small, I can't see it. Okay, yes, Nosisa's question. Let's just try and answer briefly because there's quite a few questions that we have to go through. So Nosisa, are you on the chat? Are you on the in the room? Nosisa? Okay, maybe I can answer some of these questions if if she's not there. Yes, originally I mean it was a 2-day workshop. I mean there's a lot of topics we can take this over 5 days. There's a lot of topics that we didn't go into detail with. And I think research impact, as I said, because it's becoming more and more relevant in proposal writing, and we next time we will include that. I mean, we didn't talk about even open science data sharing. There's a lot of metrics. There's a lot of things that we could have talked about, but we had to decide which topics we were going to add in. And you can see the time was also limited. So thank you. We will take that into consideration next time we do this presentation, this training workshop. Then from Ngoni, are you on the?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks,
I'm here.
Ngoni. If you can go through the question, I'm sure you can see it. You can just try and answer those questions.
Let me see. Okay. Why is it difficult? Okay. Okay. Okay, so these are the questions for me. Okay. All right. So let me take the first one from John. Why is it difficult in some situations for researchers to get funds even after developing good and focused grant proposals? All right. Thank you so much. I think based from experience, as I mentioned during my presentation, the area of grants, research grants, in most cases is built over time. It's a business that is built and developed over time. It's a business where trust is earned and the networks are built over time. Hence, one can come up with a very good, as John has said, developing a good and focused grant proposal. It's not always in a good and focused grant proposal. It's also in the track record that would have been established by the organization. And I know this may sound a bit unfortunate for young and upcoming researchers, which is why even in my presentation, I was mentioning things like avoiding working in silos. So when you are putting up a grant, it's always good to team up with those established researchers who have got a track record, and then you begin to build yourself from there, which is the reason why succession is very important. Mentorship is very important. Coaching is very important in terms of the grants. One must be willing to be a co-PI in research. That helps a lot. If you are in fact, in most cases, if you are just starting and upcoming. And even when you are established, depending with the size of the grant, if the grant at times runs into millions, most of the funders nowadays, they prefer if people come as consortiums so that risk is spread, not a winner gets it all. That's what I can say in terms of the question from John. Then the second question, is the research assessment different from the funding agent's criteria? I'm trying to understand this one. Is the research assessment different from the funding agent's criteria? If I understand this well, but I'm subject to be corrected, the research assessment, my understanding is that one is looking into the impact. What is the impact of your research over a given period of time? Then this is where you can do an assessment. While this, when you're looking at funding agents criteria, so though a thin line, but as a funder, in most cases, the funders are trying to see both the impact and also how your financial prudence comes across how you've managed to manage funding grants over the given period that the organization has been in existence. I'm happy to get any follow-up question, but from what I understand, this question from Tuma, that's what I can say. And then in the third one, most of the funds are given by relationship, not by quality of the proposal. How can we control this kind of abuse? You are right to an extent. I think what we just need to understand is that the relationship that in most cases we talk about in research, it's a relationship that is built over time. It's not a relationship that is just come overnight, which, as I was saying in my first response to John, when one looks at it, may look as if it's an abuse or may look as if the scale is not balanced. But the research and the funding world is based on relationships. Then the relationships have to be built over time. However, it's not all lost for upcoming. That's why there's always need for collaborations, partnering, working together, not working in silos. The second part actually says, how can we control this kind of abuse? The way to control this is to be willing, as I said, to be mentored, to be coached, and to work with others, which is quite encouraging when we have got platforms like the SARIMA and the WARIMA. It brings together the researchers from across, and I want to believe that after this kind of trainings, people should always see where are the common interests and then be able to team up and work together. So the issue of working together helps in terms of resolving these things. The last question, can the researchers transfer budget from one task to the other due to overcome problems? If I get this correct, transferring of budget from one task to another, you need to avoid the issue of audit findings. So one needs to pay close attention to the line items as per the contract of that particular award, and also try to see what are the underlying legislation. There are some budgets that are flexible, let me say that, where you can have a discretion to transfer certain funding as you find it fit. But there are some that you cannot. Once it's allocated for something, then it has to sit into that. Otherwise, you sit with the unallowable expenses. So I think that's what I can say in response to the questions directed to me. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Back to you.
Thank you, Ngoni. Thanks for that and clarifying certain issues there with your answers. Can we get to the next slide, Ross? Oh, there's still a question for you, Ngoni.
Yes. Shall I answer the question? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I had not seen. Thank you for but the grants are given out of ethics like by relations, what management have done to correct. Thank you for the efforts, but the grants are given out of the ethics like by relations. What management have you done to correct? A little bit of a kept ball, but I think ethics, professionalism, as I was saying, in terms of compliance, is always important. Every funding has to comply with the national legislations and all the given frameworks. So that aspect of ethics and relations, in my opinion, I think we need to look at relations as professional relations, not personal relations. And I think that's one way of looking into it. And I'll still emphasize the issue of avoiding working in silos. Is there objective standards and sharing of benefits among the PIs and call for external grants? Is there objective standards in sharing of benefits? This goes back to the call. Once the call has been done for the submission of a grant, upon looking into it as PIs, then you can be able to establish one is a PI and the other one is a co-PI. And then when it comes to the benefits, it's very much possible that you can have a grant where a certain institution will be having 10% of the grant and the other one will be having 20%. So these things can be shared depending with what's the nature of the call and how did you write up your budget and submit it. Money doesn't cross border, please. I don't think this was directed to me, right? I didn't mention this. No, I think this one is not for me. It should be for Yolanda. Am I correct? There was only one question that was from.
I think maybe I think the question is where people sometimes funders, you know, don't directly give money to, say, if it's a multilateral or collaborative a consortia project, you know, it doesn't necessarily give to certain countries or certain organizations. And it, like for us with the RUA, the funding comes to WITS and we distribute it, you know, so, and it comes from the global north. So maybe it's that kind of issue, but I think that is, you know, those things are negotiated upfront, and people, maybe the consortia partners maybe decided how the money, you know, who should manage the money and why should the money be managed at a certain institution. So I'm not, I think that is what it is. I'm not really sure. Maybe the person who asked the question can clarify after we go through the questions. Can we, and the next question. In some cases, the call lacks the requisite details on grant proposal preparation parameters. Hence, the authors miss out. How can this be addressed? I think I think this is more general questions on grants management. I think it's the interpretation of the calls. You need to look at you know, how the calls are being written up, the framework. Really, I think a lot of PIs and you know, doesn't spend a lot of time with the call document. They don't really read because sometimes it's just a lot of, you know, jargon of, you know, what is this call all about? And you just want to go to what is the application process and how we're going to do this? You know, it is really to read those call documents and framework documents very, very thoroughly. And if there is any questions, you're free to because usually the contact details are being, you know, put the funder details are added on the call information, and you're free to either ask the funder and the person managing that grant, or you can ask your research office, because if it's managed through the research office or a support office, you know, you can ask those people to also clarify those issues. We try to build good relationship with our funders so that we can easily, you know, we have a ease of communication between us. I work in the Central Research Office, and between us and the funders. So that is important, you know, so that you can just get clarity if it's not clear in the call documents. Okay, I think still, Ngoni, there's lots of questions for you. Are there clear-cut institutional policies in balancing a grant funded to senior and junior or young researchers? So does institutional policies differ or tell you how to manage grant funding to senior and junior young researchers?
Oh, okay, thank you. Are there clear-cut institutional policies in balancing a grant funded to senior and junior young researchers? I would say from our experience, it's not necessarily they are, there's a separation in terms of policies, but I think the emphasis that needs to be put on in terms of whether you're dealing with a senior or a junior or what you call the young researchers, then that will apply depending if you're dealing with a junior or a young researcher. then there might be need for more support in terms of institutional policies. But the policy framework in terms of how you manage grants, in essence, is the same. But it may be just an issue of how do you coach, how do you make a young researcher understand the framework around the policies for grants management.
Thanks, Ngoni. Hopefully that answered the questions. I think institutions do need to have policies. How they, yeah, maybe it's the question, but we have research, our research policies and innovation policies and postgrad policies. So these are all should be available at the institution, and whether they clearly indicate how funding should be managed to senior and young researchers is not really clear. I think it's just a general guideline. I think those are more for standard operating procedures, SOPs, maybe that an institution need to clearly spell that out of how you will manage funding for senior and younger researchers.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
The policy framework that is for grants management.
Okay, thanks, Ngoni. Then Kondwani, I'm not sure is in the room. As I said, he had an engagement. However, faculty members in my institution at times face challenges in a scenario where a project funder requires them to partner with researchers in Europe. How do they navigate this? I think it was mentioned in our in the presentations. It's about building relationships. Also funding. If there's some kind of seed funding available, then you can, from your institution or from a institution, then you can use that, to seed funding for to create a collaboration or mobility grants. If you can access mobility grants and you go to a conference or a workshop abroad, and you can start creating relations, or building relations from there. You can also reach out to these people in Europe, and ask them if they want to collaborate with you. Usually people collaborate around existing funding. So that is probably the means. Also look at your university's strategic partners. Who are they partnering with? And that's usually in the research framework. And so, and you can start with that, because then funding will be maybe made available at that point. And then question, if the partner wants to resign from the project, how do they manage that? I think they are all, there's in the grants conditions that you sign, there are termination clauses and how to manage that, what you have to do. If you want, do you terminate? Does the grant come to an end? Can you transfer it to another partner? Those are all spelled out in the conditions of the grant. And it's different for different funders. So one should just go through that and see how that, what the funder, the agreement that is signed between you and the funder, and how and what they say about termination clauses, or termination of partnerships. And then, which is better, to partner with government, private organization, or research project that could benefit a specific community? As we say, now more and more, you have to show whether it is your national grant funding agencies, international funding agencies, regional. You have to show how the community benefits for the greater good, right? You have to show your social impact, economic impact. So so in that, I mean, you obviously have to partner with communities. If you are, and maybe Ngoni can answer this, because their research unit partner very well with the communities. And Ngoni, maybe you can just expand on this thing, because most of your work is partnering with communities. If you can just maybe give insight.
Yeah, thanks, Yolande. So yeah, we do partner with the local community, especially being community based. than to try and answer precisely which is better to partner with a government or a private organization. I would say from experience, it's an issue of understanding, putting up the frameworks, right? We have partnered both with, and we continue to partner with the government as well as the private organization. Like recently, we're having a partnership with the Variant Bio, a US-based organization, funding equipment distribution to the local community, and that partnership worked very well. And I think when you're looking into community partners also in a certain way, because you'll be working within that community, and then that spills over to the benefit of the community. And the government, though there is bureaucracy, the main difference is that within government, there is bureaucracy, and one has to understand it very well, but also good to work with the government and partnering with it. I'm not sure now when it comes which one is really better, whether I can choose which one is better. I can only say that both, out of the two, there are different challenges that one can come across, be it on the private and also on the government.
Sorry, thanks. I mean, it depends also what is required in the grant funding conditions. Or call, you know, if it says there has to be partnering, especially with the tech transfer, a commercialization type of research, you know, you have to partner with SMMEs. You know, they require sometimes that you partner with government, especially when you do policy research as policy as an output. So, you know, you just have to check what is required and then who you have to partner with.
In addition, also, the other thing with the government is that when you're working with local community, government tends to have established infrastructures. Like, let's say you are partnering with the Department of Education or Health, you've got systems and infrastructures in place. Of course, one is to understand the bureaucracy, but it's also a good partner when it comes to systems and structures that are in place.
Okay, we have to go rush through. I have 15 to 20 minutes. Research may sometimes have to look for partners because the organization does not fit what the donor want to work with directly. Partnership are more efficient and productive where the researcher and the active team members work together seamlessly. However, the course of most partnerships are in most cases controlled by how the partnering organization are governed. Interaction between organizations, especially at governance level, are usually very complex and most cases go beyond individuals. How can your office help researchers navigate these challenges? I think in some of our discussions or answers, maybe that has been answered. You know, yeah, there's bureaucracy. You know, there's many obstacles in your way of managing partnerships. And I think it has been answered. You just have to find ways to navigate those, you know, and I think with Charles's presentation, he also touched on those. Then there's usually a short time between call and the deadline to form partnerships. Training should help, but on what and who and how? As technology advances, it may be possible for innovative ways to solve these challenges that researchers face. However, said this, I strongly believe that partnerships will remain key in advancing research. I thank you. That is a comment, and we appreciate that. Aisha, your questions. I think you've seen your questions, so you can maybe just answer it. I don't have to go through it. It was copied to you. Thanks, Aisha.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, Yolanda. Okay. Clarify the stages involved from innovation to commercialization of the innovation product. So I think I did discuss this in more detail in the second presentation, and I hope that addresses your question, Prof. John. I'll move on to the next one, if that's okay. Okay, we've answered this one. regarding the cost of patents. Can we go to the next one, Roz? Okay, can the innovation be theoretically drafted and designed, or is it only a tangible product? So yes, it has to be a tangible product or a process or a solution, or even a business model. So it's really taking an idea and implementing it in society. Why innovation has a higher uncertainty and risks than research? I think with research, it's really about the experimentations that you are doing and validating those. Whereas with innovations, it's taking it a number of steps further. And as you move along, you de-risk it. So it might be quite high in the beginning, but as you move along the process of creating innovation, it is de-risked, and you're looking at multiple factors. You're looking at technology, you're looking at the market, and you're looking at whether it will be taken up in the market as well. The business model, feasibility, etc. So I think it just increases all the risks in terms of that. Okay, can the innovation, okay, that we've answered already. Next one, Roz.
Can you see it, Aisha? Sorry, somebody's.
No, it hasn't moved yet.
What challenges? Yeah, this is. Yeah.
Okay, what challenges are then of tech transfer in an African context? So I think, well, funding is definitely a challenge as well, especially funding for early stage innovations. In South Africa, we do have the Technology Innovation Agency that manages a seed fund, and that has been very helpful. But it's quite limited because they would fund normally 2 or 3 projects per year per institution. And we found the need to have our own seed fund, which after quite a number of years, we've been able to get at our university. The transition then from your seed fund to your next stage of development, that is not a very smooth transition, and that takes quite long. There's usually very long due diligence time when going to the next step, and that delays quite a lot. I think also maybe incentives to do innovation is another issue. At universities, outputs such as publications count, but things like patents, trademarks, copyright, not as much. So that might also be another issue that we face. I'll leave it at that and move to the next one. Are there examples of TT agreements in a commercial setting? So if I'm understanding correctly, you're looking for examples of technologies that might have been transferred already. And yes, I can mention one, for example, is that we've recently taken to market is Ibertech. Ibertech is a biostimulant product, and it's derived from an indigenous plant source. The researcher has been working on this for quite a while now. It started from the idea that this indigenous plant, which has antimicrobial properties, and if it was used as an adjuvant, actually, or as a pesticide, and a number of plant trials have been done, and we've taken it all the way through demonstration trials. But while we were doing some of our plant trials, we figured out that it actually has biostimulant properties. And looking at the regulatory settings, we had enough information to register the product as a biostimulant. And we've done that, and the researcher had decided to start a company, and he's now commercializing this, and this product is now in the market. I'll move on to the next question because I'm just aware of time. Can a university innovator market his product to the government? Yes, you can. So if the innovation addresses a specific need that the government has, it can be marketed to the government. One example is a scorecard innovation that has been developed by one of our researchers, and she's come up with this single-page scorecard with a number of questions, and it addresses the psychosocial well-being of students at schools. And at the moment, teachers have a book, and this is in South Africa, and they write notes as to how the student is progressing, and they identify certain behavioral patterns or learning disabilities, etc. And so the scorecard could replace that. It takes up a lot less time than making individual notes. And the market that this researcher has identified for the product is public schools, because she's done trials in public schools, and she would like to take it out or would like to roll it out in public schools. And so she will be then engaging with the relevant government departments in education to try and get this product out. What advice can you give an SGC with a function of supporting innovation commercialization and setting up a seed fund? Okay, so I mentioned the Technology Innovation Agency Seed Fund, and maybe that's quite a good example because it is working quite well. So although they fund like maybe 2 or 3 projects per university, and it's really small amounts that enables the project to move to the next level of development or the next level of getting to the market. I think the thing that's lacking there is maybe having a structure in place for follow-on funding, or to have that. They do have a structure. I think it's more the transitioning to get the follow-on funding, the next phase of funding, and also having the various support structures around, like access to prototype manufacturers, for example, and incubation services, etc. So it's setting up that ecosystem basically.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. I think if there's any other more questions, we are aware of the time, and people are indicating they, just to make it clear, we didn't run overtime here. The program was from 9 a.m. to 12:45, which is like 3 minutes to 1:45 SAST time. So it is just maybe you're not looking at the time in your region, and so we stuck with the time provided for this training. If there's any further questions, can you please direct it to the presenters, or if you have it, we will take it from the chat. We will ask them, and maybe we can send it to them. The feedback link, I will just get Zimaza. She will come in just after me to end the session, just to tell you about the feedback, or Ross, if they are just to wrap this up. But from my side, I just want to thank everyone. I mean, this was really, and even I learned a lot in this training. It was insightful. There was insightful insights from presenters. And I really think this was, yeah, a very good, and thanks to the participants. I mean, to sat throughout this presentation for these few hours was, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming and participating. And next time, we had a few glitches at the beginning. We tried to sort it out this on the second day, but I'm sure, yeah, the next training session we will offer, we will manage it a little bit better. That was just technical glitches. Okay, over to Zimasa. If you want, Zimasa, if you want to just come in, and then Ross, maybe about the you know, talk how the presenters, if there's questions, how the presenters will, if they can email the questions to them, and how will you manage that? Thank you.